It's time for Windows Weekly. Paul and Richard are here. There are reorgs aplenty at Microsoft. We'll talk about that. A lawsuit, perhaps, in the future between Microsoft and their good buddy OpenAI. Is it divorce time? Mommy and Daddy are fighting. And Microsoft's removed this is an Xbox messaging. What does that mean for Xbox? I don't know. Maybe Paul does. It's coming up next on Windows Weekly. This episode is brought to you by OutSystems, a leading AI development platform for the enterprise. Organizations all over the world are creating custom apps and AI agents on the OutSystems platform, and with good reason. Build, run, and govern apps and agents on one unified platform. Innovate at the speed of AI without compromising quality or control. Trusted by thousands of enterprises worldwide for mission-critical apps. Teams of any size and technical depth can use OutSystems to build, deploy, and manage AI apps and agents quickly and effectively without compromising reliability and security. With OutSystems, you can accelerate ideas from concept to completion. It's the leading AI development platform that is unified, agile, and enterprise-proven, allowing you to build your agentic future with AI solutions deeply integrated into your architecture. OutSystems. Build your agentic future. Learn more at outsystems.com/twit. That's outsystems.com/twit.
Podcasts you love.
From people you trust.
This is Twit.
This is Windows Weekly with Paul Thurrott and Richard Campbell, episode 975, recorded Wednesday, March 18th, 2026. A bubble of knowledge. Well, hey, all you winners and dozers. It's Cheesy Leo here.
It was almost Fat Albert.
hey, that's Paul Thurrott from Mexico City, Mexico. Hello, Paul.
Hello, Leo.
And to his left, my right, your right, left, I don't know.
Directions are arbitrary.
Mr. Campbell, Richard, from British Columbia, where they will be on daylight saving time for the rest of their lives.
Forever. And at least until winter arrives and everybody gets angry. I don't know.
Yeah, they may say, hey, wait a minute, we're up north and it's dark at 10 a.m.
I was literally talking in the truck with She Who Must Be Obeyed last night. And she's like, this is going to be great. I'm like, wait till winter. And so we'll see how upset people are.
Yeah. Well, like I said, I think last week or 2 weeks ago, this only makes sense when the whole world does it. Because the time change thing is a nightmare.
It really is bad. Now, in Mexico, you don't do it anymore.
Right.
Which is nice.
It is nice, but we used to be like 1 hour off from the U.S. at all times. And now in this part of the year, we're 2 hours off. And, you know.
Briefly.
So before Windows Weekly, I had breakfast instead of lunch, that kind of thing. It's okay.
Yeah, you just have to pay. You do have to check times. World Time Buddy is my friend. I use it all the time because I book a lot of shows.
Yeah.
I can't tell you how many times I screwed up times on math. And it's the simplest math, especially, from like if you're staying on the
you're
continent.
Booking someone in Sydney, then you're in
trouble.
I know.
At that point, it gets ridiculous. But yeah.
Okay, let's talk about Microsoft. That's what we do here on Windows Weekly every Wednesday. What's going on?
I'm so sorry, everybody. Actually, we got a bunch of big news stories this week. A couple of Microsoft reorgs, and starting with one that impacts, well, actually, they both impact Windows. So, and actually, I'm not even sure this is the bigger of the two now that I'm thinking about it. But the other day, Microsoft announced that Rajesh Jha is retiring mid-year. And then some other things, which we'll get to. But he runs the Experience and Devices team. You may remember him because after Terry Myerson left, when there wasn't someone directly responsible for Windows, he became the face of Windows for a little while, a couple of years maybe. Mm-hmm. And then, Panos Panay came in. But so experiences, is it Experience plus Device or Experiences plus whatever it is? This is kind of the front-facing stuff that, not just Windows, but for purposes of this discussion, Windows. To me, this thing must span productivity and business processes, which is Microsoft 365, and more personal computing, which is Windows, because Windows just does that, right? Like that's the thing. There's a little bit in both,
But it's M365's in that equation too, which is kind of a big deal.
Yes, right. And so Right. So tied to what you just said, Jeff Teeper, we've known for a long, long time, was just promoted to
Mr.
executive.
SharePoint.
Yeah, executive vice president. He's a good guy.
So that kind of puts him in the leadership group now, too.
Yep. And Sumit Chauhan, who you may know, and I do not, but Kirk Conisbauer, who I do know, both promoted to president. Okay. And those are firmly in the Microsoft 365 part of the business, I guess. That's the way I would describe that. But this, let me see. This is so hard because I had to look every one of these people up because I don't know any of these people. Well, I'm sorry, that's not true. I know some of these people. So these are the names: Perry Clark, Charles Lamana, which sounds like an awesome Spanish name. Lamana, Pavan Davluri.
That's the Power Platform dude.
Yep, and Ryan Ruslansky are all now going to report directly to Satya Nadella as executive vice president. So they've also been promoted as well. We know who Davluri is, obviously. He's in charge of Windows and devices, right, under more personal computing. But Perry Clark was running Microsoft 365 Core. Charles Lamanana, whatever that guy's name is, president of Business and Industry Copilot. I'm sorry if I'm making fun of. I have the worst name in the world, and I'm making fun of someone's name. It's not fair. And then Ryan Ruslansky is CEO of LinkedIn and also the executive vice president of Office. So a lot of this is on the Microsoft 365 side. Now, it's possible. So this type of thing, it's hard to see. You see someone retiring.
He's past 60.
Yep, he's been there for a long time. So because Phil Spencer just left as well, or is leaving, you kind of think, okay, well, is this that kind of a situation? And yeah, I think it kind of is. This guy's been there for a long time, actually.
Yeah. I don't think he's being pushed out. I think he's past.
No,
60.
I don't either. Yeah, exactly. I think so too. He seems to have done a good job in the sense that there are no issues within the organization, and Satya Nadella clearly likes the guy, et cetera, et cetera.
I mean, I'm not thrilled with M365 Copilot, and I think Anthropic just embarrassed them. I don't think that has anything to do with anything.
Yeah. No, I don't. I'm right. I just think he's actually retiring. That's why Phil Spencer retires, Susan Bond leaves, and it's like, okay, what's going wrong? What is this? And it's like, no, this was something that was coming. It's
but these four, Clark, Lamana, Davluri, and Ruslansky, they used to report to Jha.
Right.
I mean, how does Satya have time to take 4 more direct reports?
Oh, because he's not a CEO anymore. I don't know if you got that memo. He gave up most of his CEO job to Judson.
Judson Adhoff, yeah.
So I don't know. To me, this.
Why aren't they reporting to him?
Right. So here's my guess. I feel like Satya Nadella is taking because we're going to talk a little bit more about this later in the show, but a little bit more of a hands-on thing when it comes to AI and how it's being rolled out inside Microsoft. And I think because these guys are all in charge of businesses where this will happen, he wants to make sure there's a conversation occurring regularly with these, to make sure they're all in the same page.
If you were going to talk about the consumer-facing part of AI for Microsoft, it would be Windows and Office. And that's who's now reporting to him.
Yep. Right. I know. Interesting, right? Yeah. So his role, like he leaves and his role kind of disappears. I mean.
Yeah. Which is always weird to me, right? Like.
Yeah. Right. Same. And
if it's a retirement, if he's been here for a while, didn't he plan a successor? Like, that would be a logical thing.
Well, as with the Phil Spencer thing, there was some language from Satya Nadella in the email to employees that they just published online that, they've been talking about this for a while and they've been trying to figure out what this transition looks like, et cetera, et cetera. So there's a lot that goes into this. It's a big, complicated company, right? So this will occur at the start of the fiscal year, which is July 1st. Just fun fact about this guy. When he started at the company, he worked on Microsoft Works. Remember that?
Sure. Because it was the early 2000s, right? Like he's not
it was 1990.
Was it 1990? Okay.
Yes.
Oh, he's
been there for a long time.
EVP for 20 years.
Yeah.
Okay, that's crazy. So
he's
he
always
became an
been
EVP under Balmer, but he was Gates.
Unless I just wasn't paying attention. I don't feel that he was a regular stage presence at Microsoft trade shows until Terry Myerson left, and then suddenly he. And, there was, from my perspective, it was like, who is this guy? But he was always Terry Myerson's boss. And anyway, he's leaving. That's kind of big news. And we'll talk about another reorg, which I do think is very much related to that. And then I'm curious. I have some commentary around that, but let's move on for now, at least to Windows. So in the Insider programs, since the last time we spoke, there have been two major sets of releases. The first is to the release preview program, meaning this is a preview of the Week D update that will go out next week, which is a preview of the Patch Tuesday update that will go out in April, right? Continuing with the trends we've been speaking about, this is a bunch of small stuff, right? So these are features we've already talked about, I would assume, for the most part. They're minor, I would say. Minor in the sense that they're not like, oh, we're throwing AI everywhere, the agents are here, or whatever it is. Like, this is stuff like improvements, the narrator and settings, smart app control. This is the thing where you can toggle it on and off. Normally, display pen settings, like seriously. Voice typing in File Explorer, which I wrote as Fire Explorer, which is hilarious. And then improvements to the Windows recovery environment, specifically for ARM. So nothing I just said is earth-shattering in any way. And if that's what constitutes the April Patch Tuesday update, which I believe it is, I mean, this is the fourth straight month of like, yay, like just not a lot going on. It's good.
Incremental, minor improvements.
Yep.
So I still feel like we're waiting to see Pavan's plan for Windows. And
we're still
cleaning things up.
We're literally gonna talk about this later because please, just to preview that, I'll just say, don't think this means we're scaling back anything. Like but
I think it's teams are rethinking.
But a more measured approach to really, well, part of it might just be, okay, we're going to put AI in Windows. Maybe make sure it's ready before we put it in Windows, right? The spastic way that they rolled out, honestly. I know, the Copilot app in, I guess it was 2023, ahead of 23H2,
right,
has set the model for what we've seen for the past 2 years, but now we're scaling back from that. So that's, to me, is just...
a spin on this is we have spent a lot of time rushing to put AI into everything because we knew you all wanted it. Now that we found out that you don't, we're trying to be a bit more thoughtful.
Right.
That's
like someone's...
trying.
Well, it's like someone punches you in the face and then they say they're sorry and they're like, well, at least they're sorry. You still punch us in the face, but it's fine. It's fine. We're all good. So... we also got new Canary dev and beta builds in keeping with tradition. Canary is nothing new, meaning nothing we've not seen elsewhere in the Insider program, right? So, okay, 26H1, ladies and gentlemen. And then dev and beta are minor things, right? So the drop tray, which is now called drag tray, is the new name for that feature. This is the first thing I now disable in Windows.
So you got the name wrong. You thought it was.
Yeah, they got the feature wrong. The feature's terrible. Right? Yeah. Here's what people are never going to do: share anything from Windows. So I don't know what this is for. No one does this. It's ridiculous.
If you were good at sharing things, there might be a chance that someone would do it. So far, we've learned not to go there because it's such a bad experience. But if the experience got better,
it's not just a bad experience; it's an inconsistent experience. Right. So you got that going for you. I wish they don't get me started. I'm sorry. I'm going to editorialize, and this makes me crazy, but it's okay. But two interesting, what I will call low-level updates. One of them's not really low-level, but in settings, they're going to allow you in the screen where you can name your computer, where you actually, if you do that, you have to reboot the computer and then go through settings again. They're going to allow you to change the user folder name, right? This is useful in some circles, right? When I sign in as paul@throt.net, in my case, it makes the folder Paul, which is what I want. I have a lot of scripts written that assume that directory structure, right? If I sign in with throt at like outlook.com or whatever, that folder becomes THURR, and it's like useless. So in that case, actually, I would want to change the name to Paul because that's, again, like I have scripts. So it's a kind of a power user feature, but nice. And then I've been wondering about this. So Windows has had a feature called System Restore since probably Windows XP, I'm thinking.
Yep.
And it's sat there kind of unchanged for not 50 years, a long time, 10 years, 15 years, a long time. Yeah. To the point where as Windows has modernized across Windows 8, 10, and now 11, there has become this belief that this won't always work. The point of system restore was you do something like install an app or a driver, more likely, really causes a problem, and you can go back to the previous point in time. I do recommend using this feature in certain cases, like if you're using like a Windows 11 debloat type utility, it's smart to, maybe make that,
take a restore point before you run it.
Take a restore point. So it looks like they're actually starting to build this thing out a little bit more now. So they might be they'll probably change the name, but it's like a point in time restore.
Yeah.
Where you can actually configure settings and so forth. And so I see where this goes. I've never understood why they let it sit there.
Pavan took the big blow about the AI thing, and then sort of came back later and said, "Hey, we're gonna deal with some stuff." Like, doesn't improving restore point feel like one of those things? It's like, what have we done to keep people comfortable with the machine, to be more confident and so forth? Oh, we haven't touched system restore in a decade. Well, we should touch that.
Let me make a prediction along those lines, because there's another kind of, I almost said major feature. In certain circles, and I would say in our circles, it is a major feature. The ability to change the name of the user folder at setup time, for example, or system restore functionality. The thing I would add to this list that has not been touched in years and years and years is remote desktop. And the reason I say that is that people today, and by Microsoft's plan, by and large, sign into a computer using a Microsoft account. And if you do that and then try to sign into a remote PC on your home network that is signed in with the same Microsoft account, it does not work. You have to work around it. I wrote something up about this a couple of years ago. They need to add Microsoft account support to the remote desktop app. You're telling people they have to do this, and then you're breaking this other feature that's in Windows when they do that.
Yeah, and of course, on the admin side, we were pushed really hard to stop using remote desktop because it had so many vulnerabilities to it. And Microsoft ultimately lost that battle. There's a certain number of workflows where it's like, sorry, RDP is the only way to do this. And certainly,
especially within a single network, right? I mean, to me, it's look. I'm talking about a home network. It's kind of an esoteric use case, but I mean, small business, a single, little local network, whatever it is. I mean, the ability to get from here to there without having to spend half a day troubleshooting and making specific configurations would be
well. And in reality, I think in the consumer's perspective, RDP is your alternative to other remote software for doing remote help.
Right, like third-party remote software or whatever.
And what you're really saying when you're trying to push RDP out is go buy a product.
Yeah, there's like the problem steps recorder that I think also started in XP is come and gone, right? I believe that's been removed already. And then I don't know what they call this computer's been so thoroughly cleaned, I don't have anything on here anymore. But there are
made for
assistance.
It's a good time to do a rethink of this. How do we help people keep their machines running?
What a thought.
How do we help them recover? How do we help them get help?
You're a crazy person, Richard.
I know.
I don't even know who you are anymore.
I'm thinking good thoughts about them. I'm trying to. Pavan's doing something great. I really think being hopeful.
Yeah, no, I like the positivity. I do.
Somebody's got to bring it.
That's good. That's good. Last week we talked about Intel releasing a semi-confusing new set of desktop chips. These are the Core Ultra Plus series chips,
right?
Which is weird because it's really Core Ultra Minus, because these things are Arrow Lake and they do not have the MPU that's in Lunar Lake or Panther Lake, right? So those chips, when they announced them, were described by Intel as the fastest gaming PC processors available. Since then, they've released the mobile version of this. It's a family of chips. So there's two. This is the Core Ultra Plus 200HX series. You can't tell the Intel processors without a scorecard, I think is the phrase I'm looking for here. These are Arrow Lake refresh chips like the last week, the Core Ultra Plus, God, these names are terrible, that they announced last week, which were very inexpensive. Mobile chips are not sold at retail, right? So we don't get retail pricing, but they're in a variety of computers already, like literally as of yesterday, they're selling them. And there'll be many, many more this year, of course. The thing is, this is not a Copilot Plus PC chip. And and I will also say on the mobile side, for whatever reason, Panther Lake, which is the successor, is literally the successor to Lunar Lake, is most notable for the graphics and performance improvements, to the point where this thing basically performs as well as maybe we'll call it one or two previous generation NVIDIA dedicated graphics chips, right?
Wow.
So you get like a level of fidelity and performance that has never been seen before in an integrated graphics chip, but now they have these other chips. Now, I suppose, I
have a couple of thoughts in this space. One is I definitely know there are buyers of computers for business that are being specifically selecting non-NPU processors. They don't
Really,
want
on
AI
purpose.
in the office.
Wow.
And so they specifically want that. And when I saw this coming out and it's a gaming PC, it's like, have we gotten to the place with AI where it's like Vista, where people were so scared of Vista, they're like, I won't buy this machine that has Vista on it. It's like, are people walking into Best Buys and saying, I don't want any AI on my PC? It's like,
so weird
here's one with no
because
NPU.
that's just bizarre to me. There's no.
I don't disagree, but remember, we live in a bubble, right?
Well,
I think,
but it's a
out
bubble of knowledge. I mean, like that's a semi-ignorant viewpoint. I mean, well, it is.
My mother told me she didn't want any Vista on her computer. I'm like, you're not qualified for.
No, that was understandable. Look, when Windows 8 came out, I had friends call me like, I just bought a new computer. Like normal, non-technical people. My friend Chris did this. He said, it's got this Windows 8 thing on it. He's like, I can just go back to Windows 7, right? And I'm like, I don't think you can, man. It's a new computer. Like, I don't know, maybe, but there's no button in there to, go back, right?
Downgrade me.
Yeah. But, with the case of like on-device AI stuff and Copilot plus PC, I mean, there's stuff that's truly useful, but ignoring that, I mean, you can turn most of it off. I mean,
I'm with you.
And the stuff that you can't turn off is just innocuous. Like, I can't turn off an individual AI, like the upscaling feature in the Photos app. It's like, okay, well, it's not hurting anything. So whatever. I
mean, obviously these chips are already in the pipeline, but I gotta think there's a PM out there. It's like, I wonder if there's a market for non-NPU chips right now. Let's go see.
This is like saying, you know what we should do? The 386 is really expensive. Why don't we make a version where we don't have a math coprocessor?
There we go. Yes,
it's a little bit like that. But of course, I think that was a strategy. I think what you just said about Intel is correct. These things were in the pipeline. So
is it going to come? Is it just binning?
No, it's a different architecture.
Yeah, it's a refresh of the chip, right? It's the talk to the tick. So
right. So they don't
It's a backwards talk.
Yeah, at some point, there's no doubt that some successor to Arrow Lake now, whatever it's called, will get that 40 or whatever tops MPU. Then we won't be having this stupid conversation.
I think Arrow Lake
anymore.
is going to fade out for Panther Lake ultimately.
No, I don't think that. I think that the MPU that's in Panther Lake will just make its way to a successor of Arrow Lake. Arrow Lake will continue forward. My guess with this stuff is, at least in the gaming PC, but maybe also creator space, is I feel like laptops that are based on this high level of chip, because this is I didn't look this up, but it's probably it's going to be a higher TPU, than the Panther Lake stuff. The Panther Lake is for ultralights and whatever, but although the graphics performance is insanity, right?
Right.
These systems will come typically with dedicated graphics.
Right.
I think that's going to be the point.
That makes sense. So they don't need the NPU because they're...
Well, see, I still think they do, but yeah, I mean, artificially they do because of Copilot plus PC ridiculousness. But yeah, like the graphics chip that's built into these things is good. The obviously dedicated graphics could be excellent. I don't know what the tops ratings are for modern NVIDIA, but hundreds and hundreds of tops, right? Mm-hmm. And those guys, whether it's like a workstation or a gaming PC or something for a creator who's doing video editing or whatever it might be, they'll want that system that it's going to be a beefier, more power hungry processor than Panther Lake. Mm-hmm. So it's just the thing that makes it weird is it's a higher level, more expensive chip, but it's lacking a couple of things that are over here on the lower end one, Right. So, but I think it's just a slice in time thing. Like it's Intel, so it's not going to like 6 months. It's going to be 3-4 years, maybe. We'll see. There's no doubt, like it's going to change.
Yeah,
that's all. I don't.
The timing's just weird. It feels weird.
The timing is bizarre, and this has some of the same things that are on the desktop Arrow Lake, of course, like that binary optimization tool that significantly improves game performance in select games. The year-over-year, what they call now die-to-die frequency boost of almost 1 gigahertz, right, over the previous gen, which is kind of fascinating. It's 900 megahertz, but, big clock speed bump, I guess, so we can go back to the megahertz method days or whatever. I don't know. Anyway, it's fine. It's not fine. It's weird, but whatever. It is what it is, I guess is the way I would say.
Yeah. Well, I'm running Arrow Lake on the Intel machine, which a while ago I was complaining was very unreliable and I wasn't able to trust it. And then I got a set of driver updates.
That's what happens. Yeah, you get these firmware updates through your PC maker, or in this case through Intel.
Yep.
If you must run the Intel driver utility or whatever.
Yeah, Intel driver utility is a bunch of Asus stuff because it's an Asus motherboard, and voila, the problems just went away.
That's very typical, right? And especially when a new chip comes out, you'll probably get more, or higher frequency of those kind of updates in the beginning, and then it kind of calms down.
Yeah.
I've seen actually on this very laptop. So a couple of weeks ago, going back a couple of weeks, the day of the show, I would plug it into the dock here and it would green screen because I'm running like an insider build, and I'd bring it back. I'm like, okay, and then I play like Call of Duty, and there's a Call of Duty update, which is always hilarious because it takes the whole day.
It's because it's the entire game.
Yeah, yeah, and then you would run. You run it. It has to do all the shaders and everything. You finally like, all right, here I am getting in, and then I got this error I've never seen before in my life. It's like a DirectX error, like crashed, and the game just crashes and it won't run. I'm like, oh, that's fantastic. And then I got an update for the firmware for the BIOS or whatever. Updated that. Then Call of Duty runs again, nice. And then yesterday I was playing, and like the controller would just randomly disconnect. And I'm thinking, well, it could be the controller, could be the cable, could be the port. I don't, who knows?
Yeah.
I got another firmware update and it fixed it. I'm like, what the
nice.
Like, come on, man. Like, seriously, like, it's unbelievable.
You didn't dive into this, but the emergency Windows patches that have flown in the past 6 weeks.
Right. Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if, assuming things go better, that Ignite comes this year, November probably, or November definitely, I guess. And, Pavan Davuluri gets on stage and says, remember all that terrible stuff that happened at the beginning of the year? We had to do that to get to the other side of that, and now that never happens again.
I hope he does that one way or the other, because everybody wants to feel like there's a plan, but okay.
Well, yeah, that's for sure.
Yeah.
Okay. And then finally, so IDC in November of last year warned about the RAM stuff and the uncertainty. In December, a second warning. I think at that time they expected the PC sales to decline. I think it was, I don't remember where it was, 7.6%, I guess. No, that's a different number. I'm sorry, I don't remember. It was a single-digit number. It was some small amount. And of course, now it's ongoing. And they're like, we got a war in Iran. We have this thing's going to go through 2027 now. So now they believe that PC sales are going to fall as much as 13. I think it's 13.6%. Is that the right number?
Yikes.
11.3. Sorry, I'm just throwing numbers out.
Well, and this is supply chain issues more than anything. But my recommendation on the Min side at the beginning of the year was this is a good year to buy extended warranties and not buy hardware you'll overpay. Yeah. Until this stupidity dies down. And this seems like the RAM manufacturers all know it because they're not doubling production. They're raising it like 20%. Here's
the problem. And by the way, Arrow Lake may actually solve this problem. This has been this wonderful trend in PCs, and we saw this at CES, especially with Lenovo, kind of taking it to a framework like extreme where repairability has become a big thing, right?
Yep.
So I bought this cheap, the lowest level Snapdragon X based like Windows and ARM PC last year laptop, and I can open this thing up without voiding the warranty, and I replace the SSD.
Yeah,
perfect, right?
No problem.
But the one thing you can't do is the RAM, because the RAM is typically integrated into the processor SoC, right?
That's the ultrabook form factor.
Yep. So I don't know this for a fact on mobile, but I do know for a fact on desktop that what you get are slots of some kind, right? And I think on the Arrow Lake one, I believe the Intel motherboards have 4 slots, and at some point you'll be able to update these things north of 120 gigs of RAM. So it would be nice. No, no, but we don't have Windows 12 yet. So it would be nice if you could buy a laptop today with a minimal amount of RAM just to kind of get you through this.
Yeah.
And then you could update it later, right?
Yeah.
When RAM prices come down or whatever it is. Enough time's gone by, you've saved up, however you want to look at it.
Yeah. Problem is your manufacturing pipeline is so clogged up, you can't make those machines just to anticipate.
Well, the other problem is the mainstream SoCs that these companies are selling in laptops for consumers don't allow that anyway. It doesn't matter, So even though these things have become more broadly repairable and user serviceable across the board, batteries, Wi-Fi and Bluetooth modules, keyboards, the whole thing. Like you could pretty much, as a human being, just replace all this stuff. Yeah. It's nice.
And the thing that's in short supply are the surface mount RAM blocks, whether you solder them onto a DDR5 or you solder them onto a SoC, like it's all the same problem.
Right.
They cannot make as much as what is currently back ordered. It's just a question of how many of those back orders actually are going to or need to be filled, right? Like you get back to that whole, you opened a whole bunch of browsers to get one pair of Taylor Swift tickets. So you've made all of these orders and you only want one set of them and you're going to cancel the rest. And again, the memory companies seem to have caught on to this is what's actually happening.
Mm-hmm. It's too bad. Look, if you know how to desolder RAM, you're probably going to have a pretty good year.
Apparently it's big business right now. Great story about a guy buying selling a used 5090 and then getting it returned. And when he gets it back, all the RAM's been taken off of it. Yeah.
We're going to get to, if anyone's ever bought a used car or just have an old car, whatever, you go to a junkyard and they've cars were in crashes, but all these different parts are still fine. It's like a parts car, Yeah. We're going to have like parts laptops, these like stripped down laptops. Like this one doesn't have RAM. This one doesn't have the SSD. This one doesn't have Wi-Fi, whatever, I didn't see if they talked about smartphones. I know the prediction now is smartphones sales are also going to decline.
I'm scared
this year.
for Apple. They kind of have our one trick pony when it comes to revenue stream. And if you can't make enough iPhones, boy, it's not going to be a good year for Apple.
Yeah. Pretty confident,
they're big enough. They've been probably able to sew that up.
Tim Cook's one main talent was controlling his supply line. So one would hope.
I think Apple's going to be okay. But
I think all these companies are going to survive, but I think we're going to have a down year across the board, which is going to just help that bubble burst.
Yeah. We definitely need a little bit of a reset.
I would like to focus on efficiency, please.
Leo, I have to ask a very important question.
Yes, sir.
You've not sullied my notes with ad breaks.
Oh, yes, I have.
Yeah.
Oh, then I haven't gotten the update for some reason. Okay.
Oh, there's something going on with the Notion. Well, as a matter of fact,
Notion has finally failed me. You bastard.
This, in fact, is where you intuited. This is actually where I wanted to stick it.
All right. I'm going to go get a drink and pretend you didn't say that.
Okay. Insertion commence.
Oh.
It's still not getting better.
We're glad you're here. This episode of Windows Weekly brought to you by Zscaler, the world's largest cloud security platform. We talk about AI all the time. We just were. And, of course, the rewards of AI are, for most, too great to ignore. But then so are the risks. Things like the loss of sensitive data and attacks against enterprise-managed AI. And then, of course, there's the fact that the bad guys are also not sitting back on AI. Generative AI increases the opportunity for them. They're using it to create phishing lures that are, impeccable, impossible to detect, write malicious code, automate data extraction, everything. So let's talk first about the risk of accidentally sending out important proprietary information from your company. There were 1.3 million instances last year of social security numbers leaked to AI applications. I bet it's happening right now. We're getting close to tax time in the U.S. I bet a lot of people are saying, well, let me upload my tax return and see what it says. And, of course, your social's right there, as is your address and everything else. Your employee's probably doing the same thing. ChatGPT and Microsoft Copilot alone saw nearly 3.2 million data violations last year. So I think we set the stage. It's clear. It's time for a modern approach with Zscaler Zero Trust plus AI. It removes your attack surface. It secures your data everywhere. It safeguards your use of public and private AI. And it protects against ransomware and AI-powered phishing attacks. And you don't have to listen to what I have to say. Check out what Shiva says, the Director of Security and Infrastructure at Zuora. They use Zscaler. Watch.
AI provides tremendous opportunities, but it also brings tremendous security concerns when it comes to data privacy and data security. The benefit of Zscaler with ZIA rolled out for us right now is giving us the insights of how our employees are using various Gen AI tools. So ability to monitor the activity, make sure that what we consider confidential and sensitive information according to company's data classification does not get fed into the public LLM models, etc.
With zero trust plus AI, you can thrive in the AI era. You can stay ahead of the competition. You can remain resilient even as threats and risks evolve. Learn more at zscaler.com/security. That's zscaler.com/security. We thank them so much for their support of Windows Weekly. Actually, I'm going to go see them at the RSA conference on Tuesday. I'm taking next Tuesday off. I'll be back for the show next Wednesday, but I'm going to go over to RSAC. I've never been. I'm looking forward to it. I'm sure you've been many times, Richard.
I dip my hand in those things once in a while.
Yeah.
But those conferences can be a little hairy. It's a lot of real-time hacking going on.
Yeah. Okay, I'm going to leave my phones at home.
Everyone connect to the Wi-Fi, please.
Yeah.
There you go.
All right. Speaking of AI, I know it's just a fad. It's going to blow over any day now.
Nice.
Yep. It's the pet rock of the 21st century.
But meanwhile, by the way, our AI show is coming up right after this on Windows Weekly, and we're going to talk to Runan Chaudhuri about something very exciting that I can't tell you, and Jeff's going to have a big announcement, but that's coming up. What's going on in your world of AI?
Not even a hint?
Huh? No.
Not even a hint?
No hints. What did you get? Did you get a little pulque? Did you get a little mezcal?
No, it's just kombucha.
Kombucha. Yeah. I would drink, if I were you,
Yeah.
I would drink watermelon. Hugo, that whatever you call it, watermelon, every day. I just love that.
Sandia, right?
Sandia. Those Hugos they have, the juices are so good.
Yeah. We do drink that out in the world.
It's very refreshing on a hot day.
Yeah.
Anyway, let's talk about AI.
Yeah. So this is potentially blockbuster news. I just want everyone to think back and remember when $11 billion was a lot of money.
Oh, yeah.
Remember that? Remember when OpenAI had one partner, Microsoft, that was that they had this kind of synergistic, relationship, right? They helped each other.
I'll invest $1 billion in your company, and you'll buy $1 billion worth of Azure with it, and that makes my $1 billion into $2.
Yes. Yep. No, it doesn't. Wait,
It's magic.
What?
So
It's AI magic.
yeah. Their relationship, we all saw this coming, right? We know things are going to end badly here. I don't think Microsoft's had a breakup this bad since they had the IBM thing back in the early 1990s when they had the joint development agreement. Remember, they were both developing MS-DOS and OS2, and then they weren't. And then they hated each other. And then they fought each other. And then IBM left the computer industry eventually, which is the effect Microsoft has on people. I'm not going to, I can't, off the top of my head, there's no way I could thread through everything that's happened with OpenAI in just the past 3-4 months. But let's suffice to say that they are now an integral part of that multi-tangled thing where everyone's touching everything. And they have many, many partners. They recently had a $110 billion valuation round, $50 billion of which was coming through a strategic partnership with Amazon. Right, which has AWS, and we all know this stuff. Apparently, according to a report in the Financial Times, Amazon and OpenAI are working to get around a system, or to build a system that will work around the contract that Microsoft has with OpenAI, which is that Microsoft has exclusive rights to first refusal of any models or whatever that OpenAI makes, and is the exclusive provider of OpenAI APIs to the world. Microsoft does not like this. Microsoft says it violates the spirit, if not the letter, of this agreement that they have. And if they go through with this, Microsoft is threatening to sue them, OpenAI, for breaching the terms of their contract. And that would be big.
That would be huge. It'd also be decades.
Yeah, which in this era is, like litigating something that happened with steam trains.
Yeah. More
finally,
it very likely means at some point OpenAI turns off the APIs for Microsoft. Like, we're really going to litigate.
Would be a material breach of the contract. So,
yeah,
which ties into this next thing. So I'm just going to kind of commingle these things because they are, I think, related. Microsoft also announced a second reorganization. This one, I think, was yesterday. And this one is related to Copilot and AI. And so there's a bunch of components to this and a bunch of people moving around, but Copilot is currently, or was until now, two separate teams, right? One for commercial and one for consumer. The consumer side was under Mustafa Suleyman, right, who came in from Inflection. Did I get that right? Inflection? Mm-hmm. Let's lose track of these names. He's head of Microsoft AI, right? And so I guess his job to date has been like kind of twofold, working on the consumer Copilot AI stuff, which I think we can all agree has gone gangbusters, and also make Microsoft's foundational models. These are the things they hope to replace OpenAI with, right, at some point, or at least be able to have their own stuff that is of that level. And then if customers want to use OpenAI or Anthropic, whatever, I think that's part of the model as well, but not the AI model, the business model. Someone named Jacob Andrew, formerly of Snap, and then he worked at Microsoft 10 seconds before this little promotion, is going to run Copilot. He's going to be an executive vice president of Copilot, new position, and will report directly to who? Satya Nadella, because everyone's reporting directly now. I guess we're going to get through all the organizational hierarchy. It's just everything just goes right through him. The Snap thing is interesting. At least it's not Instacart. Whatever. Okay. Mustafa Suleyman also wrote this was announced in an email to employees, which was published. And then Mustafa Suleyman also wrote his own email. And from his perspective, he was brought to Microsoft to get to superintelligence, meaning the center of his job, the point of his job is to develop this AI model layer, as he's calling it, which is foundational to everything Microsoft builds on top of it. Replace OpenAI, which is not what he's saying, but minimizing and then removing Microsoft's reliance on models from OpenAI and from others is top of mind, right? Now, when I read this, I thought to myself, oh, this is almost a demotion. He had two kind of broad areas of responsibility. Now he has one. He is still reporting directly to Nadella, because everyone is, but he's not in charge of this Copilot bit, right? And so is also going to be, this is so crazy. These names will be familiar because we just talked about all of them. Ryan Ruslansky, Perry Clark, and Charles are all going to be part of something called the Copilot Leadership Team, because we have to have multiple leadership teams, just like we have to have multiple CEOs. They will also report directly to Nadella. Okay. So the point of this thing is Copilot is a mess. We all know this.
I really feel like Microsoft bit themselves by calling everything the same name.
100%.
And it's not the same thing.
This would have been at least a year and a half ago, but 2.5 years ago, I think. It might have been the first Ignite that I went to where no one else went to it for some reason, because you got me in under the podcast thing. Yeah. I was talking to Donna Sarkar, and you might have been there when I had this conversation. I can't remember, but she said, right now internally at Microsoft, there are 117 things called Copilot, and that is 115 things too many. And, one of her goals at the time, and, I don't know that she's been successful, was to, kind of reduce that, right?
Yeah.
There were also things where...
that was the mission that Satya set out in January 23. Like, that email said,
yep,
here are the APIs.
You were doing
all these product teams need to make something.
Yeah.
Like, what do you think was going to happen?
Yeah, and if you're not on board with this, leave, or we'll just get rid of you, because we need you to be on. Right. So you have all these hundreds probably of teams, at least dozens, but probably hundreds, let's call it hundreds, of teams all working to add AI to their product somehow. They can see that Microsoft has rallied around the name Copilot. They are adding the name Copilot to their products, right? I know of one instance, it's not really important to say what it was, but Microsoft was on the verge of announcing two products at, I guess it was last year's Ignite, that were almost literally identical and didn't just have some crossover. It was like 90-something% crossover. And that was only stopped at the last second. And part of that problem is there isn't this cohesive, or there wasn't at the time. I think this is the point of this, is they were actually in the same part of the company, which is what makes this really screwed up. But you could imagine between Windows, Microsoft 365, and then Power Platform and different parts of Microsoft that different teams are going to come to the same, we need this, whatever it might be.
Well, like, I don't saying that Satya's mission was a bad idea. Everybody needed to learn in a hurry.
And get people on the same page, right?
Yeah. Everybody's got to have, what was missing was the then what part, where now a leadership team gets together and actually goes through this and says, what's the same, what's different, like consolidate.
This is very common.
Which is suspiciously what we're talking about right now.
This is like the war with Iraq, 30 years ago, or 30 years ago. Yeah. 20 years ago, whatever that was, 20 years ago, I guess. It's like, we're going to overthrow, the regime in Iraq. It's like, all right, what are we doing after that? Yeah, we have no idea. We'll make it up as we. And that went great. We're doing it now with Iran. It's going great. And this is an attempt to rein that in. And the thing I kind of want to get to here is that there are, I think people draw the wrong conclusions sometimes, right? Like Zach Bowden, good guy. But an enthusiast, right? He kind of approaches the world like I do, really, honestly, from a Windows-centric kind of point of view, right? He was talking about how in 2024, which, by the way, literally 2 years ago, Microsoft showed off some kind of a feature where you were going to have actionable AI-related integrations in notifications. And have you noticed they never shipped that? Microsoft is scaling back on their Copilot ambitions in Windows. That's not what that means. That's not that you're what do you call it? That's a false equivalency, right? Microsoft has publicly broadcast their desire or their intention to put features in Windows that never appeared many times. I would point everyone at Longhorn, by the way, is the most obvious example. But also remember sets from Windows 10, right? This kind of over-promise under-deliver thing has been a big problem in Windows for a long time. It's not surprising, given how fast AI is moving, that this will happen a lot in this era, right?
Well, there's an argument that for some classes of products, and I've further put dev products in here, show us the bits when they're new so we can push back on them makes a lot of sense. But an operating system, I have a tougher time with that.
You're also, what you're suggesting, I think implicitly here, is that we have an insider program, which would be a great place to do stuff like that, and they just abuse that system horribly. I don't know what they're doing. And in the case of Copilot, like I said, 2023, they jammed that thing down everyone's throats. Again, I don't want to beat this to death, but there is this, I think people make these connections that aren't there, Microsoft also has a habit of just lying, right? I mean, it's clear this company is pathological, right? So when they came out with Windows 10, I had forgotten about this. In fact, in the course of writing my de-certify Windows 11 book, I was looking up the history of this. I forgot this. I blocked these things out. This is when Microsoft started adding all the privacy problems in Windows, when they started putting on tracking and didn't let you turn it off, that kind of thing. There were at least two that I remember, antitrust regulators, France and the Netherlands, who came to them and said, "No, you can't do this. This is a gross violation of." So Microsoft did at the time what I called privacy theater, which is they pretended to make all these changes and they added a lot of language to set up and they added like toggle switches, but they didn't actually change any of the telemetry stuff. You're still sending that stuff in. And, pretty much regulators fell for it, Recall was another example. Supposed security experts all freaking out. I meant to look this up before the show. It has been 1,200, whatever the number is. It must be like 575 days since Microsoft announced Recall. How many security vulnerabilities have been, or hacks or anything? Nothing. Zero, right? Microsoft made a big show of like delaying the feature and changing everything. And then you look at the changes they made and you compare it to what they announced originally. And if you can read, and I can read, they made no material technical changes. Now, they did make it opt-in, not opt-out. Okay, that's great. But this is another form of theater, right? And so I think this is not so much them lying in this case, it's people reading between the lines. But when people hear that Microsoft is going to, because Pavan Davalori said it, one of the big focuses this year for Windows is going to be the pain points, right? Stability, reliability, the foundational stuff. And we've talked about, we're about to enter the 4th month of the year in which the body of feature updates we've gotten to Windows, things that we could actually describe as feature updates, it's pretty small. Like there's nothing major there. And so, of course, the connection people draw is, they're scaling back Copilot, they're scaling back AI. No, they're not. They're just not. I'm sorry. All that agentic nonsense that they announced at Ignite this past year, it's happening, guys. I'm sorry.
Sure.
So, look, yes, they announced something and didn't release it. Yeah, they do that all the time. It's not because there's been a giant reshuffling of how things work. That said, one of the things I think could and should come out of this little reorg with Copilot having one thing is, here's an idea. How about having a single Copilot experience in Windows instead of Microsoft 365 Copilot as an app, which used to be the Office app, remember?
Yep.
And Copilot, right? Have one app. Like, why do you have two? I mean, that's mental. The thing that I've seen on my own PCs as I reset them, and I do that all the time, is on a certain class of PC, usually, not always, but usually, if you do a fresh install as an individual, and now, obviously, if you're in a managed environment, this might be different, you will actually get Microsoft 365 Copilot, the app, and not Copilot. And it's because, I think it's because no one's ever talked about this, but I believe it's because these are business class computers. Like it's an HP EliteBook, right? Or a Lenovo ThinkPad, not a OmniBook or a Yoga or something, not a consumer laptop. If it was a consumer laptop, I suspect, and I've seen, you would get Copilot, not Microsoft 365 Copilot. But to the average person, that's just confusing. I mean, if you're going to have an experience or an app in this case that is called Copilot, you should have one, and it should be called Copilot. So we'll
preferably one of the good ones.
Yeah, I mean, right? That I can't. I can't even. Maybe. So false equivalency. But fair to say, we have had the reorg. Things are going to change to some degree. We'll see what comes out of this. Microsoft is on the back end working to get their own foundational models going. Mustafa Suleyman is in charge of that bit. Okay. But yeah, don't think we're going to go back to local account sign-ins and like whatever we had back in the year 2000. Yeah. We're not taking steps back.
There's also seems to be this whole subtext of they're doing their best to not be dependent on OpenAI or any other provider.
Which, by the way, is one of the many things that speaks to the need for local AI. Because, well,
I just don't know that Microsoft is incented on local AI. They're in the business of cloud.
Right.
No, I know that. But as far as like local AI features that are running on a Copilot plus PC, so there's Microsoft Phi, right, which I think most people have heard of. And then there's dozens of other small models that probably are in fact based on OpenAI models, frankly, at this point. But they're local models, right? They're installed on the computer. That if that stuff ever could take off, aside from helping Microsoft with the expense of the cloud hosting stuff, that would also lower the reliance on OpenAI, I would think.
Yeah, well, and sooner or later, one of the other players is going to come up with a good local AI solution, and if you're not there, you're going to be in trouble.
Yeah,
you want to, it seems like the ultimate outcome here is when you need the big model, you call the big model and you consume cloud resources, and a lot of the work can be done locally. My home assistant rig is configured that way right now.
Yeah.
This
I
is
speak to one interface. If it can process it locally, it does, and if it can't, it kicks it to OpenAI.
Yeah, that sounds exactly like something Windows should just do, right?
But do you make money on local AI? I mean, that's
through volume. No, I don't know. Do you
I guess
make
you could
money
sell the model.
No,
the initial model.
The argument is you're saving money, right? And
no, I know
if you
the
have
consumer is, but is Microsoft?
No, Microsoft is. So imagine, for example, I used this example earlier. Just use it now. Today, there is a feature in Photos, the app in Windows. If you have a Copilot Plus PC, there's actually several, but the one I'll focus on is it's an upscaling feature. So you can take like a scan of a photo that you made, from a photo from the 1990s or something that's super low res. You can upscale it to 4K. It improves the quality and the resolution, and then you save it. and now you have this new file. This is all done locally, right?
And if you use NVIDIA's DLSS, you can make it super sexy.
We're going to get to that. So, but for now, you don't use this is running on the MPU. This is saving Microsoft money, right? In other words, a human being bought a computer.
You don't make money directly on a browser, but you use the browser so that you have the telemetry and you're a gateway drug.
Yeah, but I mean, in this case, literally, Microsoft could offer that to all Windows 11 users. But if they did, most of them are running non-Copilot Plus PCs. It would have to hit something in the cloud. That would cost them money.
Yeah.
So you, as this person that is, you bought a computer once, Microsoft's not making any more money off you for the most part. So what's the option here? You could put this thing behind a Microsoft 365 paywall. That would help mitigate some of the costs, I guess. And they do that, by the way, with some features. Or you just make it MPU only. You have to have the Copilot Plus PC, which is what they're doing for this particular feature. So if they just open this up to everyone, and people, there would be people who would literally spend days just upscaling photos. This would cost Microsoft lots of money.
Sure.
So I think that's the strategy, such as it is. So in the future, hopefully, this will be more sophisticated. Again, keeping it to the single feature. You try to upscale an image. If you have a Copilot Plus PC, it runs on an MPU. If you have ideally it would run on a GPU, by the way, but let's not add another nuance to this.
1,500 tops in my 5080.
I know. Geez, I know. Is that more than 40? I can't remember. Yeah, it is. A lot more. Not quite exponential, but it's a lot more. But if you had a Microsoft 365 subscription you were paying for, you might be able to use a cloud model. They don't do that right now, but they could. And then if you don't, then it just doesn't appear. You don't even get the option, Yeah. Like that to me is how maybe a lot of this stuff should work. We'll see. It's the problem is they throw this stuff out there so fast. Like it doesn't have a chance to make sense. If that makes sense. Okay. And then just real quick, I don't want to spend too much time on almost any of this, but if you could think of, we talked about this. I think Leo was talking about you're using. You were using it for retirement stuff. I was saying that that's the second worst use case for AI. The first worst is health, and Microsoft, of course, announced Copilot Health. Nice. In the US, for consumers. It's on a wait list, so if you want to wait to get really bad information, you can do that. I don't know. I don't even want to talk about this thing. It's gross. Google also announced a personal intelligence feature. This is the way that Gemini connects to apps, or in this case, they're kind of like web apps or services, things like search and Google Photos and whatever. So you sign into Google, you have access to all these AI capabilities everywhere. Who can keep track of this anymore? And when you do things like, say, I'm going to make something up, you search for Google Photos for something, it's going to take into mind all of the data it has across whatever you have with Google, like Gmail or Google Calendar or whatever. So if you say something like, I would like a photo from the meeting I had in New York in March, it can know from your calendar what the day was and then go find the photos from that day, that kind of thing. So that's good, I guess. Obviously you have to buy into that stuff. And then this week, OpenAI announced their GPT 5.4 mini and nano models, which are the smaller ones. They're optimized for speed and efficiency. And if you use Duck AI, which is private and anonymizes everything, if you use any of the big models, you can actually access GPT 5 mini right now through there for free with whatever usage limits. And then if you have an OpenAI ChatGPT subscription of whatever kind, you can use GPT 5.2 as well for reasoning. I'm sorry, I should have said these. They're using for reasoning models. So reasoning models are the ones that take a long time. So you ask it a question, and it's like when a magician does something over here, so you don't see his hand putting the card in his pocket. He's like, let me think about that. Yeah, I guess if I was going to research this topic, I would blah, blah, blah. And then while you're sitting there like, oh, look how smart this is. It's just buying time.
Describe it as it gets the answer immediately, but then it does analysis on the answer.
And then corrects itself over time.
Reasoning sequence. Whether it corrects itself is a separate issue, but it mainly does is show a kind of language progress bar, so you feel like the
Yeah,
answer.
there you go. To me, it's a lot of hand waving, but
Well, that's
I see this in the
what they
coding stuff.
basically said.
Yeah, I mean, it's just like it seems like you'd want to do that. Like, oh, actually, that's not a good idea. Let's do this instead. Oh, wait, hold on a second, and then whatever. At the end, you get what is hopefully and usually actually a more accurate response, or something. I don't know. That's the theory.
Wow, you guys just burning through this stuff at
I'm surprised, but I actually thought to myself, we're going to run into problems today.
Yeah, the whiskey bit is huge because
good.
I went all in on Irish history.
We're going to backload this show,
I looked at it
The
and
history
went,
of
I am
Ireland.
shocked. I am appalled at myself and delighted at the same time.
It was St. Patrick's Day yesterday,
It
so
was.
I think
I put the green
We
shirt
do have
on.
a big we have a big Xbox segment too. So
There
I
you go.
did. I have to say, I'm very proud of myself. I had a very successful St. Patrick's Day. I did a
Nice.
what constitutes a successful St. Patrick's Day?
well, I did a corned beef and cabbage. Except that when I was at the grocery store looking at the corned beef, I noticed that they had it way back behind all the bright red corned beefs. They had a corned pork, and I thought,
Pork.
that sounds mighty delicious. So I asked the butcher. I said, "Corned pork, is that good? Is that good? I never heard of that." He said, "Yeah, it's great. Would you like to
You like
would
pork?
you like to
You like things that have been corned?
Yeah. All that means is it's salted, I guess.
Yeah.
Right?
Corns of salt.
It's back in the it's big chunks of salt. Back in the day when they didn't have refrigeration, they would corn the pork or the
Store
beef.
your meat.
So I said, "All right,
in a
I'll
barrel.
take the corned pork. I'll take it." And I slow cooked it yesterday with cabbage and potatoes and carrots. And ladies and gentlemen, I just want to show you that is
Wow.
That's
is
like
splatter
that
of
looks like an
food.
Easter meal. That's nice.
It was really good. It was it was kind of a cross between it's a pork loin,
Yeah.
but it wasn't. Sometimes corned beef is a little stringy and
Yeah.
tough and dry. This was amazing.
That's why they slather it in mustard.
Yeah, I did put the mustard out for the Germans in the family.
Well, sure.
So that was my. So I would say I had a successful St. Patrick's Day, and
Very
of course,
nice.
Irish whiskey was.
I had
involved.
a ramen with Korean chicken, so it was also sort of a.
I bet though, knowing Mexico City, that there were people celebrating St. Patrick's Day.
Oh, I'm
So
sure.
actually, yesterday it rained, which is very unusual this time of
Very
year.
unusual. Yeah.
I got to tell you, this city shuts down when it rains. Like it just shuts down.
Everybody went home.
It was quieter walking up the street last night than I've ever seen it ever. And normally, I think it would have been stupidity central.
They
but
don't like
I
the
think
rain, huh?
They don't. The rain.
No.
Well, think about the impact of rain in a place where it doesn't really rain a lot. So it's very
How's the
disruptive.
drainage?
Actually, it was fine. I'm always looking out for that. It was fine.
Yeah.
But it keeps people at home,
Yeah.
That's interesting.
So that might have actually saved us some noise last night. I think last night would have been stupid.
Yeah.
I'm going to, next time I go to make corned beef from a brisket, I'm also going to buy a pork loin and I'll do them both.
Try it. It was amazing. And then I cooked it in the crock pot, the slow cooker, for 6 hours, and it just came out great. But I also had the spices, the pickling spices and all that. Anyway, that's
Very nice.
Awesome.
per nothing at all. You're watching Windows Weekly with Paul Thurrott. It's just I'm just stalling for time, and Richard Campbell, because I know everybody really is here for one thing and one thing only: the Xbox segment, and that's
Halo theme songs.
time for Halo. Thank you, Kevin King. Our
It's
esteemed
still
producer.
religious sounding backwards,
It is.
I love it backwards. Do you think we could get dinged for playing it backwards? I don't think.
Does it ever say
content
Paul
ID
is dead?
No. He is barefoot, however. What's the latest in Xbox?
Well, in keeping with the earlier segment about rumor versus reality, there was a news story the other day that Microsoft had removed the "This is an Xbox" messaging from its website, right, which was so controversial for console fans,
implying
right?
that you really didn't need an Xbox to be an Xbox.
Yeah, well, because you really don't. But
Yeah.
People hated that. I don't know why I just said people. Some people hated it, but
console users,
console fans, people stuck in the past, people who don't seem to realize that they've never done anything but lose money on this hardware, whatever. Anyway, but as we know, Xbox is back, and so people are saying, "Oh, see, they're going to focus on the console again," and it's like, guys, I got bad news for you. Nothing has changed. I mean, literally nothing. And I had this person respond. I wrote half of the article I wrote. Half of an article I wrote was about this. The other half was that Windows, like, nothing is actually changing thing. Someone said, "Well, if nothing is changing, why did Phil Spencer and Sarah Bond leave?" And it's like, because Phil Spencer was always going to retire, and Sarah Bond was really not well liked, and expected to be his replacement.
He didn't get the job. And what else do you do when you don't get your job?
So, I mean, you got to remember, like, in its best console generation, Xbox 360 came in third of 3 consoles and lost money. So, like, I'm sorry, but, like, so when you look at what Microsoft has announced for this next gen console, which, by the way, won't ship to consumers at the earliest until the very end of next year, which is 18 months plus from now. This is not anything different than they've already talked about. Sarah Bond talked about this console fairly incessantly, frankly. She talked about how it was going to be next generation, and they always use things like, what's the phrase, a step change, in performance and ray tracing and blah, 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 whatever. Yeah, look, it's also going to run Windows, right? It's also going to run Windows games and allow you to run Windows stores, game stores like Steam and Epic and so forth. And then tied to this, of course, the Windows. Right now, they're looking at how they bring backward compatibility to Windows 2 as well, which to me is the magic part of this, because it being a PC, I know there are downsides. I mean, we should be crystal clear about this. The Windows is not perfect, as we discuss every week. But they've done some work in Xbox. It's called Game Mode first in Windows 10 and then 11. That's becoming Xbox Mode, which I think we talked about last week. They did the full screen experience for the Xbox ROG Ally, which is going to form the basis for what this Xbox Mode on PCs, but also for the Xbox UI OS, which will be based on Windows, right?
Because I can't imagine now that they've gone down this path and there is the ROG Ally, they don't get to abandon these guys. Like, they've got
that thing is still it's Windows, right? I mean, that one is unabashedly, well, maybe slightly bashedly, a PC, right? You can, I wouldn't, but you could drop down into Windows and run Word and type things on it. I mean, you could, it's a computer. Like, it's not a sort of computer. It's literally a computer. But the OS by default runs in that full screen experience, which is essentially Xbox Mode, which is coming to all PCs soon. Where it takes a lot of the background processing type stuff away, a lot of the background or the stuff that runs at startup goes away, et cetera, et cetera. So, we'll see. They have announced nothing that was like, oh, see, there's the change. Nope. I mean, the timing of the console hasn't changed. It's still
the same. Have they changed anything on the website, actually?
They took away this is an Xbox branding stuff. It was like a marketing campaign, which, by the way, probably just came to an end, folks. Yeah,
like we would have one way or the
as
other.
Ad campaigns do. Again, this is we see. This is that human thing. This is why conspiracy theory exists, right? I remember reading the story in the New York Times probably 20 plus years ago that was talking about early man. One guy in the crowd would be like, I think I saw a tiger in the grass. We got to run. And like the people who thought they saw the tiger in the grass are the ones who survived, right? Because they weren't always right, but the people who never believed it died. And they were all, those people got kind of bred out of mankind.
Is the 10 CC faces.
So this is what humans do. We draw these connections. And
I love this Xbox pareidolia. This is the best.
Yeah. So the Xbox, this is an Xbox ad campaign is over. Thus, Microsoft is not doing this cross-platform blah, blah. No, no. Like, you got to, if you look at Xbox as a business today, if you look at it 2 years from now, 5 years from now, whatever, 90-something% of it is tied to game sales directly, right? They're a game publisher. This is where it's coming from. And yes, I'm sure the next Xbox console will be fantastic. I'm sure it will be more of a curated experience. Turn the thing on, it plays, it works, whatever. Yep, great. I also am sure it's going to cost about $1,000, and they're going to sell about 3 of them. So,
Hey, both guys who get them are going to love them.
Exactly. And look, I'll probably be one of them. I'm just to try it,
Well,
right?
it's not like the PS5 Pro is sold hotcakes either.
Well, but compared to Xbox, it kind of has, right? I mean, compared to PCs, no, for sure. But PlayStation is a good business. I don't know where they're at on the profitability scale on hardware sales, but I suspect they've crossed that line. Nintendo does that pretty quick every generation. And maybe more important, and this is actually the kind of the part of the thing I care about, and they've done right by fans, right? Mm-hmm. So those people that do want that thing can get it. We don't have that on the Xbox side, right? Xbox Series X and S have been stuck in time since the first release. They haven't changed anything material. I mean, yes, you can get more storage, big deal, but I know. This is, if you are an Xbox console fan and you're looking for more, what do you call it? You see something that's not there, what's it called?
Pareidolia. Yeah.
Pareidolia. You're looking for a further sign of pareidolia. Mm-hmm. They're testing a feature now that will come to the Xbox consoles probably in the next month or two, which is a long-awaited feature, which is per game quick resume. Quick resume is a great feature, ... when it works, right? Yeah.
It does not kind of a hibernate, isn't it? Like it literally.
Yeah, it's a way. I'm sure they use terminology like we freeze dry the game, and then the console turns off, and when you come back, we reconstitute it from its freeze dried state. Whatever.
Rehydrate. The game.
It's a way for a game that you were playing, because a lot of people will play the same game, right? So you play the game for a little while, you're done, you go away, you come back. You want to get into it as quickly as possible, and this it's basically like sleep, resume, or hibernate, whatever. The problem is it's super unreliable. So there are certain games where this thing does not work well at all. So if you're playing one of those games, you have to turn this feature off, but then you don't get the advantage elsewhere. So what they're allowing you to do is disable quick resume on a game-by-game basis, which is frankly what they should have done, from the beginning. Mm-hmm. And then there's a bunch of other features that they're testing as part of this, which I think will be part of, again, probably April, but at the latest May, the Xbox monthly update that they do. More groups on the home screen, so now you can pin up to 10 groups. The ability to pick a custom color to personalize the guide, which is that thing over the side, and then profile badges when you're looking at people's profiles for some reason, which I usually only do because I'm upset with somebody and I want to block them or complain about the username or something. So I don't really care about the badge, but whatever. Where am I? I'm looking at the wrong part of the notes and wondering why my brain is broken. Okay. So we've entered into the second half of the month as evidenced by the Ides of March and then St. Patrick's Day. So we're getting a second wave of Game Pass games across PC, console, cloud, etc. And there's some big ones in this one. So Resident Evil 7 Biohazard is a nice add. That's the one Resident Evil game I've actually finished.
Wow.
It's a good one. Yeah, it's pretty good. What's 7? Yeah, I know. So we're on 9 now, I guess, in the mainstream, the mainline games. Yeah, no, they do pretty good. Final Fantasy IV is in there. Dragon Infinite Wealth. Gabby's Dollhouse. I'm really excited about that one.
Can't wait. So
Disco Asylum also. If I could only play both of those at the same time, that would be fantastic. And then, of course,
good names, right?
Barbie Horse Trails.
Oh, my God.
Now I need Ultra, clearly.
Also, in the horror, I believe this is a horror title, Claire Obscure, Expedition 33.
Mm-hmm. Oh, that's it's not horror. That's a wonderful.
It's not. Oh, it's not.
No. Oh, it's an amazing game. In fact,
is it?
Arguably the game of the year last year.
Oh. Interesting.
Highly recommended. It's magical. It's a fighting. It's a fighting game.
It's a turn-based RPG.
Yeah. Thank you.
Okay.
Kevin King knows the words.
That one's not coming till April 2nd, so I kind of assume they're going to be talking about that one again next month. I'm not sure where they announced it right now, but
I feel like that was on Game Pass. That's how I played it.
Games come and go. That's part of it. And it might have only been on certain platforms. So
maybe
with this release, it's actually going to be everywhere. So cloud, Series X and S, handheld.
It's Disco Elysium, not Disco Asylum.
Oh, did I?
There is a difference.
There is. Yeah, I should be in one, but not the other. That's the big difference.
I want to play Disco Inferno, but that's me.
Yeah, exactly. Starfield, which
Great game.
Exclusive to the Xbox.
Skyrim in space.
All these games would look so much better in DLSS 5. In fact, they showed Starfield as one of the things in demo.
All right, so this wasn't part of the story.
The Sexify filter.
So people have a problem. So NVIDIA has announced DLSS 5, right?
Yeah.
So this is one of many technologies that improves the visual quality of games without actually requiring you to bump up the resolution or download new assets.
You want to see what I look like in DLSS?
I do.
5 because we've actually run myself through it, and I think it's much more accurate.
Oh my God, you are stunning.
You've been Josh Brolin.
You look like you're like Leo Hasselhoff. In this photo, that's crazy. You should be. Do you have like one of those like inflatable, not inflatable, those lifeguard, what do they call floaty things, like the red thing they would wear over the
I'll
shoulder?
come and save you. Run down the beach.
Yeah, exactly.
I like it.
You run in slow motion.
Blue. It's just.
It's a lot of chin. That's a lot of chin.
It's a lot of chin. The realism is amazing, says Burke.
That's funny. So I guess this has gotten some really not I guess
Gamers
it
don't
has
like
gotten
anything.
some negative feedback to the point where Jensen from NVIDIA, the founder of NVIDIA, was like, "You're all wrong."
He was all defensive. Yeah,
he's really defensive.
Yeah.
So one of the descriptions I read was like, "Imagine you could play the game Assassin's Creed Shadows without shadows," or because it changes. It changes the look of in-game assets to the point where they're sometimes not recognizable.
Yeah, change the tone of the game.
It makes it look more realistic, I think. Don't you think?
Well, look, the goal here should be like auto SR, right? The goal here is you can on a lower end PC, it's going to look like it's playing on a higher end PC. Mm-hmm. If you're just on whatever PC, it should look as good as it can look. Like hopefully the
Starfield. Oh yeah, baby.
See, it changes. So it's weird. Like
it's a different person, is what it is.
Yeah. So if you know, like you're familiar with like Pixel phones and the photography features, right? If you zoom up to, depending on the phone, if you go up to like I think it's 20x or something, it's using machine language to fill in the gaps. It's not creating anything, but if you go above that, it's creating something, right? And what it's creating may not be what you're actually looking at, right? The example I had was a photo of a gold statue in a monument in Berlin that's not an angel. It's maybe it is an angel, whatever, it doesn't matter. But it was facing away from me, so it's doing whatever pose. And it created a face for the back of its head because from its perspective, it was like, it should have a face on the back of its head.
Yeah, sure.
And that's what this is doing. And I get it.
You're talking about the victory column? The
victory column, yeah.
Wing victory, yeah.
That's right.
So just throw a face on the back of the wing victory.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And now it becomes like the winged demon of defeat because there's a face on every side of its head so it can see you no matter where you're coming from.
Wow. That or you're in tiger country and the tigers won't pounce on you if they see eyes.
Right. So yeah, this has become controversial really quick. So the example I think one of the examples you were showing.
Games.
Yeah, like the game, the latest Resident Evil game, which by the way is gorgeous. I look at the changes it made there, and I'm like, that looks great. You know, if it could somehow remain faithful to the original and not completely changing it, I feel like should be the goal.
I did appreciate it when I watched Jensen things that he's not just talking about AI, that he's at least hedging his bets a little. Oh, there's still a business. He talked about the CUDA engine for other purposes too. It's like, there is still a business out there, not just the AI business.
Anthony says this is what gamers are worried about is Minecraft turning Steve into a real person.
Hey, look, as long as it doesn't look like what's that comedian, the awful comedian that was in that movie,
I wouldn't mind
Jack Black.
Oh, yeah, they're like
just,
this.
just
Yeah, there you
yeah,
go.
don't make it look like him. That's, as long as it doesn't look like him.
I kind of wouldn't mind. I don't know. Gamers are funny. They don't want you to mess with their.
Yeah.
Here's the resident.
Well, this is an extension of all the AI complaints, right? Or the extension of the complaints of like Windows enthusiasts about AI and Windows.
Yeah.
Like it's the same argument. I mean,
Change for change sake.
Anthony says if they just showed backgrounds improved, nobody would have complained, and that might be it's the uncanny valley.
Honestly, what you look, you kind of want the effect of an up-res, right? Even if it's fake, like if it's just it's really running at low res, but it looks like it's high res. Like nice, like you want it to be faithful to the original, I guess.
Yeah. I love all the examples people are putting in.
This was like is lobbed over the plate to be mocked. I mean, it was just how they did not see that. And then his reaction afterwards,
right? It was great.
In case you thought this guy was godlike and made no mistakes, a billionaire tech leader lashing out at his own customers for being wrong is something I would expect from OpenAI, but not necessarily from NVIDIA. I mean, so
here's from Patrick Delahanty, the Blue Sky post that says it all. DLSS on, RAM is $99. DLSS off. DLSS on, it's $700. Hey, you're watching Windows Weekly, the non-DLSS 5 version, sad to say. Damn, I want to look like that. With Paul Thurrott and Richard Campbell. You know, we do thank our Club Twit members. If you would all join Club Twit right now, maybe we could afford to have DLSS 5 Leo all the time. Or not. Actually, that would be a good threat. If you don't want DLSS 5 Leo, go to twit.tv/clubtwit and join the club. $10 a month gets you ad-free versions of all the shows, access to the Club Twit Discord where all that fun is happening, plus, of course, all the special programming we do. We've got the photo seg guy, Chris Marquardt, coming up later this week tonight at 6 Pacific, 9 Eastern. Micah's Crafting Corner. Micah's going to do Paint by Numbers, a very chill version. As I said, Chris Marquardt on Friday. Monday, Home Theater Geeks, Jet Set next Thursday with Johnny Jet. Lots of stuff going on in the club. And it's all because of you, thanks to you, our Club Twit members. Twit.tv/clubtwit. If you're not a member, join the club. Now, let's get to the back of the book and Lil Pauly Thurrott and his tip of the week.
I'm going to ruin the rest of my year by writing about like switcher topics, not for the entire year, but it's going to ruin my year. So I kind of make the case, I literally make the case in Certify Windows 11 that Windows 11 is still the best desktop platform for, what I would call kind of traditional productivity work. It has lots of problems. We all know about that, but they can all be fixed or worked around. So that to me is a better solution for most people than switching platforms and whatever. But I know that's not true for everybody. And also there is this fear that maybe one day what I just said will no longer be true, right? You can kind of see Microsoft's direction in certain places, but one obvious example is local accounts and forced Microsoft account usage and how they are kind of slowly chipping away at that to remove the workarounds and fixes and so forth. And so, I don't actually see a day where they can't allow that somehow, but that's the fear. So I've been looking at, I do this all the time anyway, but I've kind of escalated it this year with the idea of writing more about that later in the year as sort of like a monthly focus thing. But the problem with switching platforms is so broad and so deep that it's almost like a non-starter even talking about it. I remember 20 plus years ago, people would write into Walt Mossberg at the Wall Street Journal and be like, "Oh, I'm having this problem with Windows. What do I do?" And he's like, "You should buy a Mac." Yeah, that's a $3,000 solution to a $20 problem. Like just completely switch platforms, buy new apps, hope they have all the apps. Back then that was actually not a guarantee. Today that would be a lot easier, but But I'm trying to figure out like all the different things that go into this. It's like kind of use cases. Like, do I use a computer all the time? Like people like us, we use computers all day long, but there are younger people, especially who are on their phone all day long, and they only need a bigger screen sometimes. And so maybe you need a simpler platform, workflow, which I think of as a combination of like apps and online services and habits. As I work throughout the day, maybe I write in whatever app, I edit documents in whatever images in whatever app. I update, I read things on the web and then I publish to the web and I use whatever tools I use. And then there's the online storage in the background. And it's like, some of this is not reproducible elsewhere. And it's like, well, then how change averse are you? Because are you able to make this? Can you change the way you work? Is it worth doing that? I mean, the amount of time it takes just to do that. And you're familiar with whatever platform, in this case, maybe Windows, and that familiarity leads to a certain form of efficiency. And that also makes it's just small things like on the Mac, it's Command C to copy and paste, or copy, not Control C or whatever, or the ridiculous, multitasking capabilities in the Mac, which to me completely just killed this whole experience for me. But which you can fix with utilities, et cetera. So there's probably a lot that goes into it, but I'm looking into this, and I kind of always look into this, but as sort of a side project to let's fix Windows is, well, we could replace Windows too, right? I will say, though, that in the same way that there's this kind of narrative out in the world, like Microsoft needs to go back to making consoles and forget about this cross-platform stuff, or Microsoft needs to stop putting AI in Windows or whatever it is. I see this on YouTube. These things get hundreds of thousands of views. Like, Windows is worse than it's ever been. Yeah, is it? Did you ever use Windows 8? Are you kidding me? It's not even close to that.
RC0 Vista, like that. There was some grim versions of Windows, man.
Yep. I mean, I'm sorry, but that's ludicrous. Windows, in some ways, is better than it's ever been. I mean, there are absolutely behaviors in there that are not great. I mean, we talk about this incessantly, but my role, as I see it, is to help people work around that stuff or fix it when possible. And to date, that works. It may not always work, so it's just something. But I guess the message here is the grass is always greener thing, right? Like, I think people feel like, well, if I just switched to a Mac, everything would be great, or I could just run Linux and everything would be terrible, or whatever it is. Like, I mean,
it's actually true about Linux. I'm just.
Well, I mean, Linux is a world of hurt, and not in the way maybe it's
so
no. I mean, in that there are 1,000 distributions, multiple app package standards, file systems. I mean, it goes on and on and on, and like
you have to want to control it enough to.
And you have to
learn the process.
Also have to get a little lucky or do the research to understand whether this distribution will work on this PC that I have, because one of the appeals of Linux is that it will run on the thing you already have, that you don't have to buy a new computer.
Good point. I'm not sure about ARM PCs.
ARM is way dicier.
It's dicey.
But even within the PCs I
want to get the new Dell XPS. I got to make sure it'll run.
So
they come with Ubuntu.
Yeah,
so
Dell tends to be pretty good with Linux.
Yeah, and my Lenovo X1 Carbon.
Lenovo's always great.
Even the fingerprint reader works.
But I have one PC and one, what was the distribution? It might have been the Anduin OS. I don't remember, but one of them, the fingerprint reader worked, and I was like, "Oh my god, this is a game changer!" like having to type in a password every time you want to sign in.
Oh,
like
brutal.
A peasant.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and then you look away from the computer and it signs you. You're like, "Come on, man!"
Hey, man. Even SUDO with the fingerprint, everything, it makes it so much easier. It's just really nice.
Oh my god, biometrics are. This is the.
Yeah. I feel like it's more secure too. Yeah.
It is more secure. That's what makes it bizarre. Like, all of Apple's platforms fall back to pins sometimes. You're like, it's been a while, you got to use the pin. You're like, why? What do you like?
Because now I feel safe.
Why? Why don't you have Face ID on any Mac? Come on.
Yeah.
It's crazy. Anyway. The grass is always greener, I guess, is the point.
No, that's right. You're right. Yeah. That's right. Although I have to say, I haven't been looking over the fence at Windows in a long time.
Yeah. If your neighbor had set fire to the grass and then sat in on their porch with a rifle, that would be that fence. But
I'll be honest, even Mac to be fair, I feel the same way about Mac. Both companies have become so anxious to monetize.
They're so big that the previous model where it was like, we're just going to let people do what they want. We want to keep on the platform. It's like, no, we actually want to make money from you every month.
Yeah.
Yeah. Which is why, the Mac is probably the most comfortable thing for Windows users because it's more of the same. It really is in some ways. I mean, but it also supports all the mainline cloud services with file on demand syncing and all that stuff. Like most apps, if it's like Adobe, Microsoft Office, whatever, any browser, obviously it runs on both. The cloud services all run on both. Like, you don't have to, if you're going to buy a new computer anyway, it's probably not any more expensive for the most part. Mm-hmm. I don't know. We'll get there. But probably not in this show. I'm just throwing it out now. And then a couple of app picks. Microsoft just released a major new version of PowerToys, which if you follow PowerToys, you'll know is still under sub 1.0.
Classic.
God, how many years has it been around?
It's on the 98th version. It's still not 1.0.
Running out of numbers. Like they're
it's incredible.
Going to go to 99.1.
There are no new apps. Like this is a set of utilities. If you don't, by the way, if you're not using PowerToys, you need to be using PowerToys.
They're fun.
It's amazing. So what they've done is improve several of the features, and some in very big ways. So Command Palette, which is kind of like the Mac, what do they call it in the Mac? Spotlight search. Like you hit like the
Spotlight.
It's like and Windows, it's like by default, it's Windows key Alt plus space, and it brings up a search bar in the thing, and you can type what you want to type in there. So you can type the name of an app, and you're running the app, right? Now,
can you do documents too?
Yep. Yeah, it's nice. Actually fairly fantastic, and it's extensible. There's all these extensions you can install. It is. To me, depending on how you use Windows, this is a viable start menu replacement. The problem is Microsoft doesn't actually let you replace the start menu with something that's not start. So if you could get rid of that thing, and now, thanks to this new feature, get rid of the taskbar, this is like the complete UI for launching apps and launching searches and finding documents and stuff. So what they've added is something called, what is it called? It's a dock. What it is a toolbar that goes at the top of the screen by default, but you can put it on the sides, unlike the taskbar. You can move it around, and it gives you icon access to extensions if you want that. And then it has a bunch of CPU, RAM, Wi-Fi kind of monitors, and the clock, date and time, just like the taskbar. So you could hide the taskbar and then use Command Palette to launch apps, and then use this for shortcuts for things, which are not just apps, by the way. Could be documents, could be extensions, whatever. They've turned this thing into a viable start and taskbar replacement. I wish they would just actually let you do that thing. Crazy. Keyboard Manager got a major set of updates. So WinUI 3 UI. But also a much simpler UI and a single UI across what used to be like multiple screens. So this is the utility I use to map the Copilot key to nothing, because I never want anything to launch when I hit that key. And on a laptop, I will often hit it by mistake. So actually, I lied. I'm sorry. I don't map it to nothing. I map it usually to left arrow. It's whatever's to the right of that key, I map it to that. So as I fumble finger, I might miss the left arrow key, and I might hit that key by mistake, and now we'll just do left arrow, right? But that's what that app does. It's wonderful. And then a CursorWrap, which is a fairly recent entry or addition to PowerToys. This is where if you enable this, if you move the cursor to the right side of the screen, it wraps around to the left side. Top and bottom, same way. If you have multiple screens, it will do it across screens. I love this thing, but I have to turn it off on multiple screen setups, because it's like, where's the cursor go? Like, it's crazy. like it's bizarre. But interestingly, one of the several changes they made in this release, because they actually made a bunch, is one of the other ones is you can hold on like a key, like Control or Alt, and that is when it will wrap. So you do it kind of purposefully. You can, but the one that I was thinking of, the one that to me is a big deal, is if you're on a single screen configuration, as you would be on like a laptop, it will be on. But if you connect it to a dock and you have multiple displays, you can at that point say, don't be on for multi-screen. And that's actually the way I would want to use it. So that's pretty cool. And then there's a bunch more. Those are the big ones to me, but there's actually several more. This is a really big update. I have no idea why this wasn't 1.0, but okay. Mozilla is really, really trying right now to make Firefox a thing again, which I love. I feel like the internet without Mozilla would be a sad place. I wish they were doing better, but they're not. But we'll see what they can do. It seems like they're making the right moves. They have a new CEO. They have a new mascot. Okay, for Firefox, a little fox. Cute. They have the AI kill switch thing I was talking about a couple of weeks ago, and now what they're doing is talking about the roadmap for the rest of the year, and they're highlighting some features that are coming. Is it next week? If it's not next week, it's the week after, but soon in the next version of Firefox, and then some features for the future, and then generally.
We've gotten a lot of bug fixes lately too.
Yeah, so right. So we have things like the Anthropic deal, which led to the bug fixes, which is fantastic. They're going to have a free built-in VPN with 50 gigabytes of data, free data per month, US, France, Germany, and UK to start. Split screen, which, yes, every other browser already has. A tab notes feature where you can add notes to any tab you're viewing and have it saved to your profile so that if you bring up that site again, your notes will be there. And I would imagine if you're using AI in Firefox, which I would also imagine a lot of people aren't, but if you are, it would be able to read that and, work with that data. They had announced, I don't know, last fall probably, something called AI Window. Remember, this was their original solution to the AI problem. The AI problem being a lot of Firefox users hate AI. This is now called Smart Window. It's opt-in and off by default, or it will be when it comes out. This will probably be in Firefox 150, which is 2 versions out. There's not a wait list. I think they're soliciting feedback now from people who want early access to it. And this is a feature that will give you inline AI for whatever you're viewing in a tab in a kind of a pop-up window. So things like definitions, summaries, product comparisons, whatever else. Typical kind of AI stuff. And they're trying to kind of sandbox it from the rest of the browser, I think is the central point here. But very vague, but the person who wrote, the head of Firefox, who wrote this post, was talking about some new open standards in the Gecko rendering engine they're going to announce in the next couple of months. The typical, all the power choice, privacy kind of stuff. There's a big refresh to the Firefox user interface coming sometime this year, probably later in the year. Completely new look and feel, new themes, new icons, et cetera, across the board. So a lot of work going on with Firefox. This has inspired me to try Firefox again. I have a couple of minor problems with this browser that are kind of specific to the way I use browsers. So I'm trying to work around that right now. But honestly, I mean, if you care about Firefox, not Firefox, if you care about privacy and you just can't stand the thought of using a Chromium browser because you hate Google that much, which I have to say I kind of get, it's there. I mean, it's, remember,
but there are some rendering differences. Like if you spend time on Firefox, do running them side by side, and every so often you look at the page, you go, "What the?"
Yeah, it's not. Yeah.
And then you fire up Chrome and take another look.
The thing I often have to do in a browser because of the nature of my job is I'll look at a blog post from some company, and there's an image or it's part of a thing or whatever it is, and usually you can right click on something, save image as, you got it right, but sometimes you can't. Here's a good example. So every week when I post a link to the Windows Weekly episode, I'll do this tomorrow, if I open a browser that has 3 tabs. So there's one is the episode page on twit.tv. One is the YouTube channel page for Windows Weekly. And then the final one is the episode page on YouTube for that episode, right? And what I want is that thumbnail image. And I've done this so much, Leo may know this and know why it's this, but when you right click on the page, the image isn't there on the page. You can't see it. It's like a thumbnail that's built into the video preview or whatever. So you go to inspect, you bring up that, the F12 developer thing, you go over to sources, and this works in, Edge, Chrome, whatever. You go down and there's it says Elroy something, and then you expand that, and
that's
then
our
you'll see
image server. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's where I go to get it. Right. And so from there I can right click, download the thing. It's nice.
I'm sorry that we don't make that easier to do.
No, it's fine. Actually, no, you don't. This is just no, it's just something I do every week.
You now know how to do it.
Not a problem at all.
I can talk to Patrick. We could probably make that a simpler process.
It's not a problem. It works great.
Okay.
Except in Firefox. So when you bring up the developer tools in Firefox, the F12 step, whatever they call it, same thing, right? There's no sources view, right? So I actually don't know how to find that image in Firefox. And I've spent time today on this, literally, not on twit.tv, but just whatever site. And I cannot for the life of me. I know it's in there somewhere, right? I based on what I see here, the layout and the options, it's a little more convoluted. I also just want to be super clear. This is not a normal problem, right? This is not like most people don't. Who cares? Like this is.
You can disable right click. We might have done that. I don't know why we would do that.
No, the image isn't there. So like if I like in other words,
it's just not there at all.
No. So if I go to like twit.tv/www, which is the main page for this podcast,
right.
There's a thumbnail there. I could right click there.
Oh, I see. Oh yeah, it's in Elroy. Okay, so I get it.
That's a low res version, right?
Elroy is that Drupal backend that we use for our workflow.
Okay.
And so Elroy makes makes thumbnails and stuff for social posts. It does all of this. I assume
this is named after Elroy Jetson from the Jetsons.
At one point, all of our different servers had Jetsons names.
There you go. Yeah. I'm just familiar. I just see it every week. I'm just used to it.
All of mine are South Park characters.
There you go. I used to do one it was like James Bond locations. Like, my servers were named after like GoldenEye, which was the name of Ian Fleming's place in Jamaica.
I think our main server. Atlassian Coherence documentation had a Jetsons. I can't remember it. Patrick says all that's left is Elroy and Uniblab.
Uniblab, nice. Uniblab.
Patrick, do you know? Would there be an easy way to get Paul this thumbnail? Which size?
No.
I'm sorry. You don't mind doing it?
No.
Okay.
This is not a problem. This is no problem at all. My problem is when I do it in Firefox, I can't find it from there.
I'll be honest. This would be a great thing for Claude Code. You can easily get Claude Code to have a routine that just automatically goes and gets that every week or whatever.
Actually, that's a good idea.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. That more and more, that's what I do now is just go, I do this every week. I'm going to have Claude write a routine.
This is, I want to be, this takes me 10 seconds. I am so used to this. Like this is it's not a hide and seek game. Like I find it really quick.
Okay. Yeah. Because you know where it is.
Yeah, right. But my problem is not with Twit.
I wonder why Firefox doesn't allow you.
I don't know. Someone out there who is a developer uses Firefox says, "You idiot! It's ... I'm sure it's there.
Yeah.
But I also am sure that in the past I've looked this up,
right.
And it's just not the same. It's not. This is one thing I just think that Chromium browsers just do a little bit better for me anyway. I don't know. It's not a big.
Might well be.
Not a big deal. I want to be super clear about that.
I think
for a long
everybody
time, Firefox was like the tool.
Right,
the browser, with Firebase was
tools.
If you're developing on the web, you need to work from Firefox. It's not true anymore, but it owned it for a long time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I think everybody has multiple browsers now, right? Or not
especially developers. But I like this morning, not Twit.tv, but some other site. I'm trying to use Firefox, right? So I spent minutes on this, and I'm like, okay, I just got to get my life. I got to get going here. I have a life to live. So I just ran Chrome, went to the page, downloaded it, really quick. Just a little frustrating.
Boom. Well, thank you, Paul. Guess what? Get ready, because there's a lot of Irish coming up in just a bit. You're watching Windows Weekly with Paul Thurrott and Richard Campbell. I believe Campbell is a Scottish name.
It's true.
Do the Scots and the Irish have some sort of? Are they the joint hair? Are they both Gaelic? Is there some joint heritage?
They if you go back far enough, yeah. And we are gonna start with early Gaelic.
Going back that far.
There are gonna be some Irish people in the audience that don't like this comparison. I want to be super clear about that.
Got to be careful, and we're definitely going to touch on Aeneas coffee and the decline of the Irish whiskey.
I asked yesterday when I was having this little, corned beef and cabbage party. I wanted to put an Irish movie on, and I asked ChatGPT.
Irish movie.
I did, and it kept saying things like The Commitments. No, Trains by no. I mean a nice Irish, a happy Irish movie. I said, aren't there any musicals?
It's that Tom Cruise movie where they come to the United States and they run across all the free land, and
Gangs of New York. No. I want something positive. I said, isn't there a musical like Brigadoon or something? And ChatGPT was so dismissive. It says, well, that's Scottish. But if you would like an Irish movie,
Did it recommend like a Lucky Charms commercial from the 70s?
I ended up playing a very bad Fred Astaire movie, might be his last, called Finian's Rainbow.
What's the Irish Spring soap where they slice it with the knife?
And I like it too. It recommended the Banshees of Inisherin, where they cut off their fingers one by one. It's like, no, you don't understand. I want a happy eye. Apparently, there aren't that many happy.
Is there an Irish story that ends well? I mean, is there even?
Apparently not.
I don't think so.
I would have played Gangs in New York, but I don't think Lisa's father-in-law would have. My father-in-law, Lisa's dad, would have enjoyed that quite so much. So. Anyway, let us. You are watching Windows Weekly with Paul Thurrott and Richard Campbell. We are thrilled you are here. And you are too, because it's now time for RunAs Radio.
One of the shows I was able to get while I was at NDC London at the end of January, I got to sit down with Rajesh Jha, and she's the chief AI officer at Elastic, Elasticsearch and so forth. And a brilliant lady, really a phenomenal conversation. But one of her responsibilities was this conversation around efficiency around AI. And so we really got into sustainable talks. So what the evaluations were and, what's the appropriate utilization. We actually went down the path of the whole GitHub Green Software Foundation. She, of course, being in Elastic, where they work heavily in the cloud, there was this whole conversation about how they're starting to build software that follows solar power around. And so it literally move workloads data center to data center, so that while they're in the sunshine, the power is zero emissions essentially. But it certainly we got down into the weeds of what does this really look like for on the efficiency side with large language models and what they're going to evolve into. So I was a very enjoyable conversation. But very smart lady, and we
nice. Time. All right, Richard, I am ready, and I'm sure a few of you are as well.
I mean, it started so innocently. I just thought, a little Uskaba. I should just get an Irish whiskey. And I had to pick one I hadn't talked about before, right? And so I went with Teeling. And this specifically their small batch, which we'll get to, but there's a little bit of a path. And it started with this simple statement as I was reading up on the stories of Teeling, is that the distillery is located in the Liberties of Dublin.
Oh my!
So. And a little bit of story about Dublin itself. Dublin is a city. It is today anyway. Long before there was a city there, if you go back to some ancient times, so the Gaelic period, it was called, and I'm going to totally destroy the Gaelic pronunciation, but Béal Atha Clianth, which is a little bit west of where the city is today on the Liffey River. The Liffey River is the big tidal river in that area. And the translation, actually, and this is always a challenge, is the town of the ford of the hurdles. And I'm like, well, what the heck is that? Well, a hurdle is a sapling, is a small tree. And so literally the name, and it's classic Gaelic, is a description of where they would ford the Liffey River by putting down saplings. The Liffey River famously is very silty as a tidal river. And so that makes for very treacherous terrain. And so back in the day, before they were doing a lot of bridge building, they would put saplings down in the shallow parts to make more stable ground to cross the river. And that's where a town pops up, because once you get across the river, you can do some things. Now, needless to say, that's literally talking, pre-AD times. You can go back to even Neolithic times if you want to go that far. But let's jump up to the Vikings. Of course, the Vikings have a play in there. And the Vikings show up near the Ireland. In 1795, they raid Lambay Island. It's sort of the first documented thing. And Lambay is just off the coast of where Dublin is today. But they don't set up they're the ones who set up a permanent settlement on the Liffey. And they call their name is Dublin, which in their language translates to Black Pool, because where they set up was this intersection between the Liffey River, the big tidal one, and the smaller river, the Puddle. And the consolidation of those two makes a black pool, which is typically a tidal zone of a larger chunk of water. And that's where you see the names Black Pool everywhere, right? It's not an unusual name. And so Dublin is sort of a literal translation of that. And Dublin becomes Irish by 988 when the Irish king Mael Shechel captures it from the Vikings and keeps it thereafter. that doesn't explain the liberties at all. If we're going to talk about the liberties, we have to go up to the 1100s. So jump forward about 150 years or so to the reign of King Henry II. And he was king from 1154 till his death in 1189. And at that time, this is the English king, but England, he's got control of much of Wales, most of Eastern Ireland, a big chunk of France, most of Western France, but oddly enough, not Scotland. But let's leave that alone. They actually call it the Angevin Empire after his death when his sons take over. And early into his reign, he appoints a new Archbishop of Canterbury. In 1162, he makes Thomas Becket the Archbishop because Theobald of Bec had died. Now, you got to remember, this is the 1150s. So the Church of England is still Catholic, right? They're still, tied to the Pope and so forth. And, we don't get to split with the papacy until we get to a different Henry VIII. This is only Henry II. So that's 500 years later. But even then, and going further back than that, like several hundred years before that, the Archbishop of Canterbury is the person who crowns kings, right? That's even true today. When the current King Charles gets crowned, he gets crowned by the Archbishop of Canterbury. And so Theobald of Bec had actually crowned Henry II as well. And they had a good working relationship. And Theobald, he kind of put the priorities of king ahead of, and the government is sort of ahead of the church for the most part. So they were pretty happy with each other. And this Becket, Thomas Becket, actually had been working for Theobald for quite some time. He came from a noble family that fell on very hard times. And it was typical then, you sort of parceled your kids out to people who would take care of them. And so Theobald thought well enough of Becket that he actually recommended him to Henry II as a chancellor. And a chancellor in that era is a guy who basically is responsible for running the team that collects taxes. Specifically, Thomas Becket was responsible for collecting taxes from the landowners. So that includes churches, bishoprics, and so forth. And so as Becket is working as chancellor and is now sort of well-to-do and living a high life, as a tax collector, it's a good business and working for the king. Henry also takes one of his sons, Henry, who will be a king later, and moves him to Becket's household. So I just want to get a sense of how close all these people are to each other, right? These nobles sort of exchange around. And so the future king is now living in Becket's household, and he's chancellor. He's been a good fundraiser. But because he had a tie to Theobald, when Theobald dies in 1161 and he needs a new bishop of Canterbury, he basically says to him, like, why don't you be the bishop? Which is great. And he's expecting things to continue as usual, right? And that is not at all what happens. The moment that Thomas Becket is the Archbishop of Canterbury, he goes into this sort of aesthetic state. And aesthetics being, he renounces all sort of worldly pleasures. So dresses very simply, spends very little money, abstinence, all of that sort of thing. And totally drives on ecclesiastical rights. Now that he has this power, he's pushing hard against Henry II on how he wants to run the church and the church's relationship in England. And that goes down to the things like, one of the big ecclesiastical rights is that they are responsible for the enforcement of church laws against their members. And at that time, Becket pushes on the idea that all clerks of the church are a church's member and cannot be judged by the government. And at that, there was an estimate that's like 20% of the male population in England worked with the church in one form or another. So it's a huge amount of people. And, Henry's pretty concerned about that. It's kind of an undercutting of his laws. And so that's problematic. He also, Becket also goes after getting back land that had been lost to the archdiocese in various reigns, which of course then pisses off a bunch of nobles in the process too, because that's the land he's going after. And this story is long, but it ultimately culminates in an exile where Becket goes to France, but he goes to the part of France that's largely controlled by Henry II anyway. And there's lots of letters flying back and forth, and the Pope's involved. And the Pope just doesn't want to just back his guy because the Pope needs the support of England in his conflicts with other parts of Europe. And so, and now Becket starts excommunicating certain English nobles that are supporting the king against him, which creates even more problems. And this all hits a head in 1170 when Henry II decides to crown his son a bit early. He calls him the young king. This was the Henry that was living in Becket's household, but since Becket's now been in exile, and Henry's back with him. And because the Archbishop of Canterbury is not there, he's in France, he uses the Archbishop of York to do the crowning. And this is a big deal. Like, you're definitely infringing on the role of the Archbishop of Canterbury. And so this is where the Pope kind of goes to Henry and says, listen, yeah, you really can't do this. You need to sort this out. You guys have got to work together. And so essentially convinces Henry to allow Becket to come back to England to try and reconcile. It doesn't go well. More excommunications happen. And at some point, and this is maybe apocryphal, but it's the way the history is currently written, that Henry says the line, "Will no one rid me of this turbulent priest?" Which is enough of an encouragement for a group of 4 knights to go find Becket and kill him.
Murder in the cathedral.
Yes. This is a big famous story. And the Pope loses a gasket. There's a huge conflict with the papacy. But Henry backs off ultimately in the compromise of the Avranches. And so to the point where in 1174, Henry actually performs a public act of penance, allowing bishops and monks to hit him with a rod, a king. And this all comes back to the liberties of Dublin, because as part of his penance, Henry II travels to Ireland. And while he's there, he visits this ancient church of St. Catherine, which is literally like several hundred years old, and funds an abbey to be built there in the name of Thomas Becket. And so these Augustine monks are going to be able to do this. And at the same time, he gives these Augustine monks liberty, which is to say freedom from rates and taxes for the area of the land, the manor that they control around St. Catherine. This becomes the first liberty of Thomas Court and Donor. There'll be a bunch more. At one point, there's 6 or 7 of them around Dublin. By far, the Thomas Court and Donor is the largest at about 380 acres, although that size comes and goes and so forth. And as the power over the centuries wanes for the church, a lot of these regions get handed over to nobles. And so that liberty still exists today, but it's now known as the Meath Liberty because it was given control over to the Earl of Meath. Now, this zone is sort of the southwestern part of contemporary Dublin. And in the 18th and 19th century, it becomes this huge whiskey area. There's documentation from the early 1800s that there was 37 distilleries. They called it the Golden Whiskey Triangle. And this is where Teeling enters the story. Walter Teeling sets up a small distillery in 1782, a little craft distillery on Marrowbone Lane in the Meath Liberty, and does very well. It's good business. By 40 years on or so, by the 1820s, there's like 28 distilleries in the area. And because the Liberty has lower taxes, essentially, they're doing their own taxation. They also do like their own policing. They have a court. They even have a hospital that's all controlled by this region. You get this concentration there. And I want to point out that whiskey making, even then in Ireland, is very different from whiskey making in Scotland. Scotland's whiskey making was always a farm business. You're growing lots of barley, you have more than necessary, you make whiskey. It's sort of a side business, and it's just highly distributed. But Dublin was always a city, and a city of commerce. It has very good shipping up and down the Liffey, and so you don't grow your grain there. It comes from elsewhere in Ireland. It's brought into Dublin. It's made into whiskey here. It's aged up in the hills in the area, and then it's shipped back out again. It was always an urban business. Now we have things start to change, right? I mean, arguably a great time for whiskey in the 1820s, but in 1832, and we've talked about this before, Aeneas Coffee produces the coffee still, right? And it's using steam rather than direct heat, which won't really come into vogue for another 100 years elsewhere. Steam engines are still relatively new. It's meant to make high distillate alcohol. They typically use wheat and so forth. And the Irish will have nothing to do with the coffee still, right? He's like, you're never a prophet in your hometown. Aeneas Coffee got no love from the Irish, but the Scots think it's brilliant They buy these continuous stills like mad, and they make blended whiskey from it, which is a good tasting, inexpensive product. And so they start taking a lot of market share. The Irish are offended by this. They think it's a very lousy way to make whiskey. And that's when they start adding an E to the name whiskey. The original word whiskey had no E in it. And so the Irish want to distinguish themselves from the cheap Scottish whiskey. And so they add the E. Now, things only get worse for, if you think about the history of Ireland. We have the Great Famine, right? 1845 to 1859, which is the potato blight. The English don't help out. It's always the English fault. You have the huge departure of Irish going to America. And even in the middle of that, in 1850, I found the newspaper article where they're talking about Irish whiskey is making up 60% of all whiskey sales in the world. Like, it's huge, huge business. While there's also a famine going on, and there's this huge migration going on, it's a crazy time. But people are dying, and they're leaving, and they're broke. So the business is starting to wind down. There is a side story here that's roughly in the same time span. In 1875. There is the Great Dublin Whiskey Fire. So this is believed to have started at Lawrence Malone's Bonded Storehouse in the Dublin Liberty, same area that we're talking about. The fire started in the afternoon, and as the heat built up, barrels in these storehouses started to explode, sending streams of burning whiskey down Cork Street. The first that people knew about this was when there was pigs caught in the fire in a pen. And 35 homes were destroyed. This was a massive fire. But the good news is there were no human fatalities from the fire. But enough people tried to collect the whiskey, which of course was cast strength and it comes directly barreled, that there were 24 hospitalizations due to alcohol poisoning, resulting in 13 deaths.
Oh, I shouldn't laugh, but
unbelievable.
It was pretty strong, that cask strength.
This is the straight stuff. Okay.
Wow. They didn't know?
Yeah. Well, it's like it's free alcohol flowing down the road.
Tastes real good.
Like, you're going to do what you're going to do. So somewhere, I couldn't find the exact date. So, and Teeling started his distillery in 1782. We have that date. But the family operated it for almost over 100 years before it was acquired by Jameson's family, right? One of the biggest whiskey makers in the world. So sometime after 1882, it is sold. And it was sold for a fair price at the time, which speaks to the acumen of the Teelings, because it was right before whiskey really fell apart for Ireland. So Jameson ended up with this thing and largely ends up shutting it down within a few years. And then you get into more modern times, into the 20th century, where we have the Irish War of Independence and the UK market is cut out entirely. And right as that's as is done, then there's US prohibition for a decade, and that hurts. And the Scots are big on circumventing the rules and so forth, so they keep in the business of prohibition. And I've told this story part, but that by 1966, there are 2 Irish distilleries left, right? There's the Cork Distillers and John's Powers, and they merged together to create this thing called the Irish Distillers Group. And they built a new distillery in 1975 called the New Middleton Distillery. They opened up in Cork. And the whole point was Bushmills and Old Middleton were old distilleries. They had managed to round up a lot of the brands, Redbreast and Yellow Spot and all of those sorts of things. And so the design of their new distillery was designed to switch between different mash bills and product lines so that they could maintain the business of all these different kinds of Irish brands that were worth money. There's no distilleries left in Dublin whatsoever. This one's down in Cork. It's sort of the last distillery. And this is where our new hero comes into play. A guy named John Teeling. Yes, a descendant of Walter Teeling. Now, John Teeling's not necessarily a whiskey guy per se. He's born in 1946, and he's educated at the University College Dublin, gets a bachelor's degree in commerce and a master's degree in economic sciences. Smart enough that he gets a scholarship for a full ride MBA from the Wharton School of the University of Pennsylvania. And then another scholarship for Harvard for a Doctor of Business Studies. And in 1975, his PhD thesis published called The Evolution of Offshore Investment. But what's actually in it is a detailed explanation of exactly why the Irish whiskey industry collapsed. And it's based on this idea of the value model, which is very hip in the late 70s, early 80s, right? This is Benjamin Graham, this idea of a value investing. In fact, on the side, Teeling makes a comfortable fortune doing the value style investing that was so popular in the early 80s. But he does love Ireland, even though he's working from America for quite some time. And he eventually goes back and teaches at the University College in Dublin and works as an advisor consultant to a variety of industries. He works in the mining industry and uses value vesting tactics to improve the mining systems. He gets in and restructures the textile industry in all of Ireland. He's involved in pharmaceuticals, gas and oil, gold and diamonds. In fact, he holds the record as an Irish person for bringing the most public listings to the London Stock Exchange. He brought 10 companies onto the London Stock Exchange. And in the 80s, he sort of announces that he felt that it was time to break the monopoly that Irish distillers owned in making whiskey. They'd had a good 10 years of pretty much being it. And so he sets up, and I mentioned this in another Irishman, the Cooley Distillery in 1987 in Louth, which is north of Dublin. It used to be an alcohol distillery where they used potatoes to distill to make grain alcohol or high alcohols like your rubbing alcohol, that sort of thing. And he retunes it and actually starts making Cooley whiskey. And then when he starts running short on space, he takes the old mothball Kilbeggan distillery, and we talked about Kilbeggan in 1988, initially to store whiskey, and then actually starts the entire still systems and so forth up. And does well enough that by 2011, he's acquired by Beam for $95 million. At this point, his sons, Jack and Stephen, are also working at Cooley, and they're involved in the negotiations. And while they can't turn down that kind of money, they didn't want to get out of the whiskey business. So part of their deal in selling Cooley to Beam is that they retain 16,000 already racked and aging casks of Cooley whiskey. So Beam's going to do their own thing in their own way, so they're not too worried about the existing cast, but the boys know what they've got there. And so as soon as that deal is signed, they set up a new company called Teeling Whiskey, and they set it up in Dublin. Now, initially, they're just making blends from the stash of Cooley they've got, because it takes time to build out a distillery, and you've got to age your whiskey. It takes at least 3 years. So they only opened the doors on the distillery in the Dublin Liberties in 2015. And it's the first distillery in Dublin in 125 years. It's in Newmarket Square, right not that far from where their ancestor, Walter Teeling, set it up. And if you look at their bottle, their branding is the phoenix coming out of pot still. They're bringing back the business. And right away, they're working in malted and unmalted barley, very typical of Irish. So they buy their unmalted barley directly from farmers in Ireland. Their malted barley comes from malt houses. They don't do their own malting, and they store it in separate silos outside of the building. They make batches, 4-ton batches at a time. They use Steinecker equipment. So they use a wet mill. So they actually use water as they're grinding. And then that grist moves into a 27,000 liter or 1,025 hectoliter Steinecker mash tun, where it's held for 4 to 6 hours so that the enzymes in the malted barley help break down the unmalted. Then it goes to washbacks. They have 4 washbacks, all 30,000 liters. That's about 8,000 gallons each. 2 of them are Douglas fir and 2 of them are stainless steel, and they're open topped. There's a reason for that. The stainless steel tanks, they use a South African yeast called anchor yeast, which is in sort of ball-shaped granules. So I know you were looking for some yeast cream here. No yeast cream. But even weirder, their Doug fir washbacks, they don't add yeast to those at all. They're using lambic yeast, the yeast that's in the air. And there's a whole conversation about whether or not that yeast actually is just the anchor yeast that's already in the air from what's going on there. Their stills are Italian. They're from Frilli and Piani from Tuscany. And they're pretty straightforward stills. They're just straight onion stills. They have no bulbs. They have short strain line arms. But of course, there's 3 of them because they are Irish, and they're named for Jack Teeling's children. Aww. So the largest of the stills, the wash still at 15,000 liters, is named Allison. And their wort goes in at about 8% and produces a low wine at about 30%, pretty typical. Then the intermediate still, named Natalie at 10,000 liters, takes that low wine up to about 65%. And then the final stage, the 9,000 liter still, named Rebecca, the spirit still, lifts it all the way to 81%. Again, very typical Irish whiskey. That they come in high, then they may cut with water to do maturation. Now, the facility in Dublin is not large enough to actually do barrel maturation. So they have big storehouses about an hour's drive north near the old Cooley facility that they used to own for doing their maturation. And they actually bung on the head rather than in the bulge in the center of the barrel, because they do not store their barrels on the side. They store them upright, palletized, 6 barrels cast to a pallet, 6 pallet high, and with a total production capacity of about 500,000 liters per year. And so they opened in 2015. Their first release, the batch one, was in 2018, which was 50% malted, 50% unmalted, aged in virgin oak, ex-bourbon and wine, and ex-wine. It was only sold in Ireland. There was only 6,000 bottles. It was sold at 55 euros each. Today at auction, that bottle's worth thousands. And the whiskey we have today is the Teeling small batch, which, if you read very carefully, and I do a little bit of research, they say is hand-selected casks of grain and malt whiskey. So, and apparently it's 60% grain and 40% malt. So what does that actually mean? This is a blended whiskey. And it has straight grain, which is typical. You would have about 60% of it is just clear spirit because it's inexpensive, and then 40% malt. It also says that they're fully aged in ex-bourbon barrels. So what does fully mean? I mean, it needs to be at least 3 years, but I'm pretty sure that everything's that's in this bottle is either straight clear grain whiskey or some of those older Cooley barrels. So I don't think anything here came from the actual Teeling distillery per se. And they don't give an age range on this. So they could be very old, but they do say that it's finished in Central American rum casks for up to 12 months. So at some point they pull from the Cooley barrels, they put a batch together. When they're happy with it, they put it in rum casks. Now, my guess, there's no documentation of this, is that it's, because they said Central American, there's only a few places that make rum. And you would also have to be in the business of doing barrel exchanges, which is very unusual for rum. Most rum producers do the Solera style, where they just keep their barrels for a long time. But Flor de Cana in Nicaragua does not. A, they're a big rum producer, massive. B, they use ex-bourbon casks, which they buy from America. So they're already in the cooperage exchange, and those barrels are thin enough that they would rotate them out. And so I'll bet these are aged in Flor de Cana casks. And it goes into the bottle. They actually bottle this at 46%, which is unusual for a blend, which is typically 40%. And let's have a taste. I just opened this bottle now. I have not tried it at all. It smells like Irish, which is to say no burn on the nose, just, hey, there's some whiskey here. Oh, yeah. Yeah. It's, this is the thing you normally have in your flask on your hip for an unpleasant day, like a funeral or something like that. It's just a super nice drinking. It's got a little heat to it. But my friends, $25. $25.
Wow.
For
Nice.
an Irish whiskey. Like, that's as cheap as Jameson and got so much more character to it too. Now, this whiskey isn't going to last. This is their small batch. 16,000 barrels that they acquired in 2012. So it's been a dozen years, more, 14 years. They'll eventually use it up. But this in a lot of ways reminds me of something like a Famous Grouse, right? Which is the same kind of thing. They're taking very nice older whiskey at about 40% of the barrel, combined with grain alcohol. So you still get that flavor, but it's not too expensive. This is an Irish you leave on your shelf you can give to absolutely anybody. Because A, it doesn't cost a ton. They don't have to be wildly into whiskey to care about it. It's not going to hurt anyone. Drinks very nicely. And it's that distinctly Irish nature to it. It's not too grainy. It's certainly not peaty. It's just kind of open and available to drink. You feel warm drinking it. It must be St. Paddy's Day.
I wish I had some yesterday. Teeling small batch.
Teeling small batch.
And I wonder if I can get that in the United States of America.
I looked it up. That's just $25 out of Bevmo. So easy to
have a Bevmo.
No big deal.
I might have to check this out. I need stuff that I can give my brother-in-law when he does a small job. If he does a big job, I'll give him something, maybe a little red breast. But
you always do the red breast 12 or the green spot or the yellow spot. Right? Those are all new Middleton. You know what I like about this? John Teeling broke the monopoly and broadened the Irish whiskey market and showed that it was possible, that you didn't just have to be in the conglomerate.
I love
that it could be a bigger entity around that. And for that, he's in the Whiskey Hall of Fame. Like, he's an extraordinary man. And
I'll tell him that. It's in the Whiskey Hall of Fame, so you better like it.
And it's his sons, Jack and Stephen, that run the distillery today.
Nice.
John's still alive. He's 80.
Wow.
Wow.
Phenomenal. And his sons, the stills are named after his sons.
The stills are named after Jack Teeling's daughter.
The original. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, once again, a lovely whiskey segment that makes me thirsty. And we need to take a break now because I have to go find something in my weird from my closet.
Well, this was not in my closet, but it's going to be hanging around now because it's not super approachable. But I as I was writing all this out and I ended up, exploring the entire story of Thomas Becket, I thought, I'm in the weeds, but I love it. Because to this day, the liberty still exists.
Nice.
Because some knights of Henry II killed a guy they
Isn't that funny? In the cathedral.
Yeah.
If you do go to somethingweirdfrommycloset.com, you will find a list of all of the Windows whiskey segments to date. I mean, it takes us a while to convert them all, but there are quite a few in here. So if you start now, Teeling will make it to the list by the time you get to the end. If you love whiskey and you want to learn, there's so much.
We just got to the rum distillery in my story about rum in Australia.
Oh,
that's the latest one.
Yeah, Kevin does these kind of in his spare time, so it's not a. But so I love it.
Yeah, that was from episode 960, and we just did 975, so we're 15 behind. But
there's 115 total, so folks, there's plenty of whiskey. Something weird from mycloset.com.
And the first 8 are me explaining how Scottish whiskey works. And
we just put the total
runtime of those first 8, it's 2.5 hours.
Nice. Well, there's a dedicated audience, and there you go, 3,000 views on that first whiskey creation process. Thank you, Richard Campbell. You'll find Richard at runasradio.com. That's where the RunAs Radio podcast lives, and .NET Rocks that he does with Carl Franklin. And the Geek Outs are part of .NET Rocks. So if you're looking for Richard's famous Geek Outs on a variety of subjects, deep dives on things like space and nuclear power, those are all at .NET Rocks on runasradio.com. Paul Thurrott is at thurrott.com. That's where he makes his home and hangs his hat and his lovely articles. If you're a premium member, there's even more goodness there. You can also find his books at leanpub.com, including The Field Guide to Windows 11, Windows Everywhere, and De-Enshittifying Windows 11, the newest volume, because he just can't stop writing. They come here every Wednesday at 11 a.m. Pacific, 2 p.m. Eastern, 1800 UTC to do Windows Weekly. You can actually watch it live if you're in the club. Of course, the Club Twit Discord's the place to be. We chat with you and all that, and Richard's in there, and Paul's in there, and they talk with you while they're doing the shows. You can also watch on YouTube. Everybody can. You don't even have to be a club member. Twitch, X.com, Facebook, LinkedIn, and Kick. After the fact, on-demand versions of the show available on our website, twit.tv/WW. And, of course, you can subscribe in your favorite podcast client. And do leave us a good review, if you would, and 5 stars to spread the word about Windows Weekly and Windows Whiskey. It's like the little pod that the escape pod that goes in the full large Windows Weekly. There's a little Windows Whiskey pod that comes out at the end.
And we punch out at the bottom there.
Boom, like that. Thanks for being here, you winners and you dozers. We'll see y'all next week on Windows Weekly. Bye-bye. Hi there, Leo Laporte here. I just wanted to let you know about some of the other shows we do on this network. You probably already know about This Week in Tech. Every Sunday, I bring together some of the top journalists in the tech field to talk about the tech stories. It's a wonderful chance for you to keep up on what's going on with tech, plus be entertained by some very bright and fun minds. I hope you'll tune in every Sunday for This Week in Tech. Just go to your favorite podcast client and subscribe. This Week in Tech from the Twit Network. Thank you.